Chapter 637. Give them a warning. Jiang Wen waved his hand, a faint smile on his face. So what if they want to? Wen bro, are you saying that you want to have a taste of her? The tattooed guy thought that Wen bro was quite brave, daring to touch a police beauty? Of course not. Jiang Wen said, she knows me, I don't want to die yet. Plus, she's Chun Yutian's woman, why would I touch her? Then what about you, Wen bro? The tattooed guy was confused. Haven't the police been keeping an eye on us? That's good, since they're keeping an eye on us, we'll teach them a lesson and let them know that it's better to turn a blind eye to some things. Jiang Wen smiled coldly. What do you think the police will do if the captain of the criminal investigation department loses a kidney? Ha, that would be so embarrassing. The tattooed guy laughed. That's right, I want to teach the police a lesson, a warning at the same time. Let them know that they can't meddle in everything, that it's better for them to live in peace. Otherwise, the consequences will be dire. Jiang Wen said. Put some drugs in the prison and knock her out. Oh. The tattooed guy was surprised. Knock her out. From what I know, this Lingshan is a golden class master. None of us are her match yet. Jiang Wen said. This girl must be trying to sneak into the headquarters. That's why she's been hiding her strength. Let's fulfill her wish and let her hide until she loses a kidney. Okay, I understand. The tattooed guy nodded quickly. Thinking that Jiang Wen was indeed cruel, he was willing to cut off a kidney for such a beautiful girl. Plus, this girl's identity wasn't simple at all. Wait, tell the people in the outskirts to evacuate. Tomorrow we'll use the third stronghold, we'll give up on this one. Jiang Wen called out to the tattooed guy who was about to leave. Lingshan should have a signal transmitter on her. That stronghold should be exposed already. Yes. The tattooed guy replied and left. Jiang Wen shook his head slightly as he watched the tattooed man leave. Yutian bro, I'm really sorry. It's your fault for choosing such a troublesome girl. If she had obediently followed you back to the Chun family, how could she have lost a kidney? But Lingshan was just a small interlude. He didn't care at all. Cutting out Lingshan's kidney would only bring two results. One was for the police to give up, and the other was for them to be furious. However, so what if he flew into a rage out of humiliation? They still couldn't find where their headquarters was, and Lingshan had reached the point where she couldn't take it anymore. That was why she decided to pretend to be captured and sneak into the headquarters. Jiang Wen didn't mind at all. He was a ruthless man and he didn't care about things like that. What troubled Jiang Wen now was Lin Yi's problem. Jiang Wen was very annoyed. Lin Yi, this bastard. How dare he get involved with Meng Yao and Yushu? Jiang Wen didn't think that the relationship between Lin Yi and Meng Yao could be that pure. They even kissed, what else couldn't they do? Meng Yao was his wife, and he would never allow Meng Yao and Lin Yi to be together. Jiang Wen's feelings for Meng Yao came from the bottom of his heart, and it was almost perverted. This was his dream since he was young, and that was to marry Meng Yao. Jiang Wen had played with many women these years, and there were beautiful ones, both foreign and domestic, but he still couldn't forget about Meng Yao. This was a stubbornness in his character. Even if Meng Yao and Lin Yi had already done something, he would still bring Meng Yao home. Even if he had to put her there every day, he would make her his. Of course, if Meng Yao was still a virgin, Jiang Wen would let bygones be bygones. Lin Yi, how do you want to die? A cold smile appeared on Jiang Wen's lips. This was the smile he had every time he was about to do something bad. Since you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for what I'm about to do. Your kidney is mine now. When Lingshan's signal disappeared, Lu Wangli and the others felt that something was wrong. Without hesitation, they sent people to where Lingshan's signal disappeared. It was a deserted area, and there was an abandoned factory not far from the empty road. But when Lu Wangli and the others surrounded the factory, they found nothing. There was no one in the factory, but the people inside had left in a hurry, and it wouldn't have been long either. The light bulb was still warm, which meant that it had been lit the whole time. There were also some instant noodle bags and other food waste on the ground, as well as some ragged ropes. Evidently, the enemy had their guard up, but it was precisely because of this that Lu Wangli was even more worried. This meant that the enemy must have seen through Lingshan's identity and fled in a panic, and the signal transmitter on Lingshan must have been destroyed as well. With that thought, Lu Wangli started to panic. He hesitated for a while before calling the director, Yang Huaijuan. Director Yang. I'm Lu Wongli from the Criminal Investigation Team. Are you asleep? It was already midnight, and Lu Wongli was afraid that Huaijuan was already asleep. I just slept. What's up? Ever since Huaijuan took the medicine that Lin Yi had given him, his internal injuries had healed. He didn't feel any pain anymore, and he could sleep peacefully without the need for painkillers. He didn't feel any discomfort when he was woken up by the phone. Director Yang, Captain Song seems to be in trouble, Lu Wongli said carefully. Trouble? What happened? Tell me the details. Huaijuan's sleepiness was all gone when he heard that Lingshan was in trouble. He sat up and asked. It's like this, Captain Song found out the location of the criminal organization, so Lu Wongli told Huaijuan about Lingshan's undercover work. Who told her to go? Why didn't she ask for permission first? Huaijuan was furious after hearing Lu Wongli's words. It was Captain Song's decision. I thought she'd asked for permission already. Lu Wongli sweated. He was the captain, and it was Lingshan who reported this to Huaijuan. He couldn't just skip his rank and report to Huaijuan, could he? Chapter 638. Huaijuan washed his face and rushed to the police station. Huaijuan hung up, washed his face, and rushed to the police station. But Huaijuan wouldn't be of much use even if he went. Even if he knew that Lingshan had lost contact with them at the transit station, it wouldn't change anything. The people at the transit station had already left, and there wouldn't be any valuable clues left. The criminals were cunning, and they didn't leave any openings. Lingshan was lost just like that. Huaijuan couldn't do anything even if he was worried. All they could do now was wait for the criminals to talk to the police. They obviously knew about Lingshan's identity already, and yet they still wanted to capture her. Their goal was obvious. They either wanted to show off to the police, or they wanted to use her as a hostage to achieve their goal. But no matter what, he had to wait for the criminals to contact the police first. This song, he's really troublesome. Huaijuan rubbed his sleepy eyes as he sat in his office. He hadn't slept for the whole night, discussing the direction of the case. He was tired, but it was much better than before. Lin Yi's medicine was still effective. In the past, staying up all night would cause him to get sick, and he had to use medicine to suppress it. But now, other than fatigue, he didn't feel any discomfort. Of course, fatigue was a normal reaction. Even a healthy person would feel uncomfortable after a night of no rest. Lin Yi? Huaijuan suddenly thought of Lin Yi. Did Lin Yi have a way? If there was a way to find Lingshan, then perhaps only Lin Yi could do it? She just didn't know if he would help. Huaijuan smiled bitterly. It seemed like he still had to trouble Lin Yi. After some hesitation, Huaijuan dialed Lin Yi's number. Huaijuan always felt awkward calling Lin Yi that. He still wanted to call Lin Yi Eagle or Captain. He wasn't used to the name Yi. Jun bro, what's up? Lin Yi drove to the hospital to pick up Tang Yun. He received a call from Huaijuan just as he was about to drive off. Song was probably captured by the kidney trafficking organization. Huaijuan didn't bother with pleasantries as he told Huaijuan the reason for the call. Oh, it's normal for a girl like her to be captured. Lin Yi wasn't surprised at all. In fact, he thought that it was normal. He wouldn't have called her yesterday if he knew she was that reckless. She's a little reckless, but young people are all impulsive. Huaijuan smiled bitterly. It's like this. Song received a tip yesterday and found out where the criminals were, and oh, I know that. I was the one who told her about Bin Village. Lin Yi interrupted Huaijuan's words. Did she go there herself and was caught trying to infiltrate the enemy lines and couldn't get out after that? Huaijuan was surprised. He didn't know that. Huaijuan was a bit surprised. He didn't think that Lin Yi was the one who told Lingshan about this. It seemed like they were still in contact and pretty close too. Lin Yi wouldn't abandon Lingshan then, would he? Very simple logic. Lin Yi smiled. With Lingshan's personality, this wasn't surprising at all. What do you need from me? Can you find her or save her? Huaijuan asked directly. No need for hypocritical pleasantries between Lin Yi and Huaijuan. I'll try. Lin Yi was getting a headache. This Lingshan really knew how to cause trouble. He was going to be busy. Lin Yi didn't want to get involved in this at first, but since Huaijuan had spoken up, Lin Yi had no reason to refuse. Thank you, Eagle. Huaiju sighed in relief. Linny wasn't one to make promises easily, but once he did, he'd do his best to keep it. Oh, I'll hang up first. I'll think about what to do. Linny didn't say anything and hung up the phone. If he wanted to find Lingshan, he'd have to help Jiang Wen. It seemed like he really did have to go look for Jiang Wen. Whether or not he cut someone else's kidney had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Even if Lin Yi knew about it, he wouldn't do it. But now that it was related to Lingshan, and Lin Yi didn't like this Jiang Wen, he could see that the miss was annoyed with him, so he'd have to take care of him. What's wrong? Are you okay? Tang Yun heard the gist of it, but she couldn't hear it clearly, so she asked worriedly. It's nothing. A friend went missing and asked me to help look for her. Lin Yi said. Let's ignore her for now. Let me take a look at your head. It's almost healed. Tang Yun was a little shy, avoiding Lin Yi's gaze. She lowered her head, not daring to look at him. Oh, not bad. There aren't any scars left. Otherwise it wouldn't look good in the future. Lin Yi was satisfied with his medicine. If there's a scar, will you still want me? Tang Yun really wanted to know the answer. Your worry is unnecessary. It can be removed even if you keep it, Lin Yi said. Oh, Tang Yun was a little disappointed. She didn't hear the answer she wanted. She didn't know why Lin Yi liked her. Was it because of her looks or something else? It was a very uneasy feeling. But Lin Yi didn't understand girls and didn't notice Tang Yun's disappointment. Right, how's the relocation of the slums going? Lin Yi asked. It's temporarily stopped. I heard from Lu Xinwen that there's no news. A lot of people are waiting and watching. Tang Yun couldn't help but find it funny. They all think that the Qibing skyscraper collapsed because of quality problems. So they won't even move now. Let's not care about them for now. Lin Yi wasn't too interested in whether Zhao Qibing would demolish the buildings or not. However, he could look for him and ask for some compensation. Why don't you go to school with your employer? Tang Yun was still very vigilant towards Meng Yao and Yushu. There are people who pick them up. Lin Yi shrugged. Oh, when do you want to stay? Tang Yun asked. I'm not sure. It depends on my old man. Lin Yi shook his head. You seem to be very hostile towards them? I'm not. Tang Yun didn't admit it. When they arrived at school, Lin Yi and Tang Yun separated in front of the classroom. Everyone in the school knew about their relationship. Tang Yun didn't need to avoid them. Plus, with Meng Yao and Yushu's sudden addition, Tang Yun was on high alert. Chapter 639. Chapter 639. Tang Yun's sense of danger if Meng Yao didn't like Lin Yi. Why would she ruin her own reputation? She was a girl from a respectable family, how could she not care? There was only one possibility: she really did like Lin Yi. That's why she said those things. Especially when Meng Yao whispered something in Tang Yun's ear before she left. It made Tang Yun even more vigilant. She said that she wanted to pursue Lin Yi. Tang Yun didn't know how she should fight with Meng Yao. And she didn't know if she should fight or not. It all depended on Lin Yi's attitude. If Lin Yi didn't like Meng Yao, then Tang Yun wouldn't be worried. But Lin Yi's attitude was a bit ambiguous. He probably had feelings for Meng Yao and Yushu. This was the source of danger for Tang Yun. They lived under the same roof, and it was inevitable that feelings would grow. Now she could only take it one step at a time. Lin Yi came to the classroom and looked at his empty desk. He suddenly thought of Xiao Xiao. He hadn't seen her in a while. It had been so many days since he came back from Yanjing, and Xiao Xiao still hadn't come back. Was she still in Yanjing? Lin Yi wanted to send a text to greet her. After all, their relationship had improved a bit, and it wasn't as tense as before. But thinking about Xiao Xiao's personality, he put down his phone. She was the type of person who'd go with the flow. Who knew what she would do if he took the initiative to contact her? Lin Yi was thinking about Xiao Xiao when Xiao Xiao's text came. Lin Yi, why haven't you contacted me in so long? Do you not have me in your heart? Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the message. He didn't know how to reply. Busy, when are you coming back? Xiao Xiao was sitting on the hospital bed, bored out of her mind. Tianlong had returned and was by her side. Xiao Xiao, you're texting a friend? Tianlong was surprised to see his daughter's message. Because Feng Tianlong knew that his daughter didn't have many friends, almost none of whom she could contact through text messages. That was because other than her friends who raced with her, she had no real friends. Oh, it's Linny. You've met him before. Xiao Xiao didn't hide it. Linny. Tianlong's eyes lit up. Are you close with him? It's all right. Xiao Xiao was a little annoyed at how Linny was changing the topic. Busy? Busy with what? Was he busy dating Tang Yin or being Meng Yao and Yushu's follower? He's really not your boyfriend? Tianlong suddenly asked. Ah! Xiao Xiao's heart skipped a beat as her face heated up. Had her father noticed something? Her father had asked a similar question before, but Xiao Xiao had denied it. Why was he bringing it up again today? But Xiao Xiao remembered her body's condition and decided to go all out. Not yet for now. Not yet. Tianlong's heart skipped a beat, trying to date. I'm going after him. Xiao Xiao never had a good relationship with her father, and she never had the image of a good girl. She'd never had a boyfriend before, but when it came to this topic she was a little shy at first, but after a while she was more open about it. I wish you success. Tianlong wanted his daughter to find a boyfriend. Even if they didn't get married, they should at least have a child first. He didn't want to lose his daughter and die alone. Having a grandson or granddaughter would be something to rely on. And Linny was someone he liked, so he approved of Xiao Xiao going out with him. It's not success yet. It's not even set in stone yet. Maybe I'll die before I even catch up. Xiao Xiao wasn't worried about life and death anymore. We've wasted so many days of our time again. We could have used that time to come to the hospital every day. The final result isn't out yet, is it? Maybe there's a way. Feng Tianlong didn't have much confidence when he said this. In fact, he already predicted that the result this time would be the same as every other time, but he didn't want to give up until there was a final conclusion. So boring. Xiao Xiao fell back on the bed and continued texting Linny. Linny replied a couple of messages to Xiao Xiao, and it was time for class. He closed his phone and put it in his desk. Xiao Xiao's messages, on the other hand, were like a stone thrown into the ocean. Xiao Xiao was very pissed off. Linny, you're too lazy to even text me, huh? Yao sis, according to my observation, Shield broke him with Tang Yun today. Yushu used her spy skills again. Oh, Meng Yao replied faintly. What does that have to do with us? Don't mind him. But aren't you going after Shield, bro? You've already challenged Tang Yun. If we don't do anything, Tang Yun might think we're scared and give up. Yushu provoked. Let her think what she wants. Meng Yao wouldn't fall for it. She knew that only Pinliang and Jiangwen would fall for Yushu's tricks. Yushu was a little dejected. Yao Yao wouldn't budge no matter what she said, so she could only give up. Meng Yao had been paying attention in class, but Yushu's words messed up her mind. She rejected Yushu's suggestion, but her heart couldn't calm down at all. Meng Yao didn't even realize it until the end of class, still staring at the textbook in front of her. Yao Yao. Yushu waved her hand in front of Meng Yao. What? Meng Yao said, startled. She snapped back to reality and glared at Yushu. Are you trying to scare me to death? Yao Yao, are you in love? Yushu looked at Meng Yao curiously. What love? What are you talking about? Meng Yao's heart tightened as she looked at Yushu fiercely. The TV says that when women are in a daze, it means that they're in love. Just like you, Yao Yao, Yushu said. You believe whatever the TV says? Why don't you believe in TV shopping? Meng Yao naturally wouldn't admit that she was in love. She didn't think she'd die from it. At most, she'd be angry at Linny for flirting with girls while working. It would be forgivable if it was Shu, but it was Tang Yun. Meng Yao was pissed just thinking about it. Oh, then what were you doing just now, Yao Yao? Yushu asked with a nod. Chapter 640. Pinliang's mission. Pinliang had a heavy responsibility today, and that was to poison Yushu. Although it was against the law, Pinliang didn't feel any guilt at all. To him, the more damaging something was, the better it was. He was more than happy to cause some trouble in the school. Now that his uncle was no longer a shareholder of the school, it would be best if something bad happened to the school. His love for Meng Yao had turned into hatred, and it was the same for Lin Yi. With Jiangwen as his love rival, Pinliang didn't dare to have any thoughts about Meng Yao anymore. However, not pursuing Meng Yao didn't mean that he didn't hate Meng Yao. This time he was going to make Pengzhan pay for this, and let Meng Yao experience the feeling of turning from a high and mighty princess to a poor Cinderella. Only after experiencing a huge change could a person be enlightened. At this moment, Pinliang finally understood that Meng Yao was just messing with him. She never liked him. Even if Meng Yao didn't do it herself, she allowed Yushu to do it. These two girls, as well as Lin Yi, he would never let them go. And Zhang Wen, the day Zhang Naipeo leaves the mountain will be the day of your death. The wounds on Pinliang's body had recovered. Through Yao Wang, Fabai had asked for some Dr. Kang's medicine. Other than losing a kidney, Pinliang was fine. However, when he returned to school, Zhong Pinliang noticed that his classmates were looking at him weirdly. He didn't know if it was because he was too sensitive or because everyone was laughing at him for losing a kidney. Either way, Zhong Pinliang was extremely unhappy. This humiliation would be washed away sooner or later. The Pinliang now was different from before. After this incident, he had matured and become more stable. He understood that if he wanted to take revenge, he needed absolute strength. Without absolute strength, he couldn't fight Lin Yi and the others head-on. Of course, this wasn't to let Lin Yi go, but to play dirty. He didn't believe that Lin Yi and Peng Zhan would have a mental breakdown if he didn't play along. Before the last class of the morning, Pinliang and Xiaofu skipped class together. Pinliang didn't hide this from Xiaofu. As his other confidant, Xiaofu had done a lot of bad things with him, so there was no way he'd betray him. Brother Liang, when the time comes, we'll split up and scatter these things in the cafeteria. Right? Gao Xiaofu asked as he looked at the small bottles in his hand. Yeah, I'll take 4 and you take 3. We'll split up so we won't attract attention. Pinliang nodded. But does this thing really work? Brother Liang? Gao Xiaofu didn't believe that the originally harmless vials in his hands had turned into a highly toxic poison after being mixed together. Of course, you don't know this, but this poison was created by a legendary hermit master. It's called Deadly 7 Herbs Poison, and it's made from 7 different herbs. It's colorless and odorless, and one herb alone won't have any poison. Only when all 7 of them are eaten together will it turn into a deadly poison. It's extremely secretive, and it's a must-have for murder. Pinliang said proudly. Holy**T, that's so awesome. If the students who ate all 7 dishes at the same time were to die, wouldn't they? Gao Xiaofu exclaimed. That's true. Even if the forensic doctor comes, they won't be able to find anything. If they take out a single dish and test it, there's no poison in it. Even if they send the students to the hospital, there's no antidote. They can only wait for death in the hospital. Pinliang nodded. But we wouldn't be able to harm Peng Zhan if the forensics team couldn't find anything. Even the hospital would be able to confirm that the food wasn't poisoned. Wouldn't the school have nothing to do with the poisoning? Xiaofu asked, feeling that something wasn't quite right with the situation. Idiot! Don't you know what's the scariest thing in the world? Pinliang said with disdain. The unknown. Only the unknown is the scariest thing. Why are people afraid of ghosts? Because ghosts are unknown. No one has seen what they look like, so everyone is afraid of them. Similarly, even if the hospital found out that the students ate the poisoned food, how much impact would it have on Peng Zhan? He's a victim, poisoned as well. If he had to pay some money, people might even say that he's a good guy and a victim. But what if there's no poison in the food? That's right. Xiaofu understood. There's no poison in the food, but the students? That's even scarier. So before this riddle is solved, which parent would dare to send their child to school? What if they get poisoned again? All the parents would band together and make a fuss, and Peng Zhan would be in a lot of trouble. Pinliang said. Plus, the hospital didn't even find out the cause of the poisoning, so Peng Zhan would have to take responsibility. The students were poisoned in school, so who else would the parents turn to if not Peng Zhan? He'd have to pay for it. Haha, you're right. It seems like I'm not as thorough as you, Liang bro. Xiaofu sighed. Alright, let's go and poison the food. The cafeteria should be ready by now. Pinliang said proudly after hearing Xiaofu's words. Alright, let's go poison the food. Before Gubong resigned, Pinliang was a regular at the cafeteria. He'd come early to eat. He often skipped classes so he didn't have to wait until the last period to eat. Plus, he was the nephew of the school director, so the cafeteria manager didn't want to piss him off. Pinliang was spending money anyway, so he just had to open the cafeteria a little earlier. He wouldn't lose anything. As usual, Pinliang brought Xiaofu to the entrance of the cafeteria. The cafeteria wasn't open yet. Pinliang knocked on the door of the cafeteria, and a worker came running out. He quickly opened the door and let Pinliang in. Gubong had left, but that was something only the higher-ups knew about. Even the cafeteria manager might not have gotten the news right away, let alone the cafeteria workers. They thought that Pinliang had the backing of the school board, and they didn't want to piss him off. Chapter 641. Canteen poisoning. Pinliang calmed down when he saw that these people didn't seem to know about his uncle's resignation. He waved his hand and said, "I went out to eat a while ago. You go back to your work. I'll go to the kitchen and see what they have today." "All right, Master Zhong." The waiter nodded and went back to his work, ignoring Pinliang. It wasn't the first time Pinliang went to the kitchen anyways. The canteen was still preparing to open for business, so the dishes weren't brought out yet. They were all placed in the kitchen. Even if Pinliang wanted to eat, he would choose the dishes in the kitchen. Pinliang pushed open the kitchen door and walked in arrogantly. He let out a sigh of relief when he saw that the chef was the only one in the kitchen. Most of the time, the chef wasn't the only one in the kitchen. There were also choppers and bakers, but there was only one dish left today. The others had gone out to help clean up the tables and chairs in preparation for business. In order to save money, a high school cafeteria didn't have that many waiters. Most of them were part-timers. Pinliang turned to the chef who was preparing the last dish and asked, "How's the food today? Is there anything good?" The chef turned around and saw that it was Pinliang, but he didn't mind. He didn't like people who relied on their family's power, but he was still working in someone else's territory. Even if he had a skill, so what if he relied on his hands to make a living? They could just fire him and hire a new chef. Therefore, the chef said, "There's only one dish left, the stewed pork ribs and potatoes. It'll be ready soon. The rest is ready. Have a look yourself." "Oh, then I'll try it first. See if it's good." Pinliang walked to the chef's side and looked at the stewed ribs and potatoes in the pot. "Go get me a bowl and get me a piece of ribs. I want to try it." "All right, wait." The chef had no choice but to leave the kitchen to get a bowl for Pinliang. The utensils weren't in the kitchen, but in the disinfection room. Pinliang waited for the chef to leave before quickly taking out a small bottle from his pocket. He opened the lid and poured the powdered poison into the pot of stewed pork ribs and potatoes. Xiaofu, on the other hand, wasn't idle either. He started pouring poison into the other dishes. The utensils were still being sterilized, and the chef had to close the cabinet before he could take them out. This was enough time for Pinliang and Xiaofu to work. The two poured all the poison into the pot, but the chef wasn't back yet. The school's daily menu consisted of 6 dishes and 1 soup, just right. 7 bottles of poison were just right. If there was one less dish, it would be difficult to operate. In fact, there were very few people who would order 6 dishes and 1 soup for a meal. Apart from those rich people, almost no one would do so. However, many students who were close to each other would gather at a table in groups of 3 to 5. Each person would buy 1 or 2 different dishes, and they would be able to gather 6 dishes and 1 soup. This kind of situation was very common among students, and it greatly increased the chances of being poisoned. When the chef came back with the utensils, Pinliang was already standing next to the pot of stewed pork ribs and potatoes. He said impatiently when he saw the chef, "Why are you so slow? Hurry up, I can't wait." "The utensils are in the disinfection cabinet. It's not convenient to take them out," the chef explained with a bitter smile. "Master Zhong, why don't you try it now?" "Yes, hurry up." Pinliang nodded and pointed at the pot. "This rib, this one. It's fatty." The chef quickly scooped out the rib Pinliang wanted and handed it over. Pinliang impatiently put the rib into his mouth, yelling, "Delicious. Give us 2 portions of this stewed pork ribs and that egg soup. Give us 2 bowls too. 1 dish and 1 soup." The chef looked at Pinliang uncertain. Why did Pinliang order these 2 dishes this time? With Pinliang's personality, he wouldn't order everything, but at least 3 or 4. "I don't really like the others. Hurry up, get me more meat," Pinliang said impatiently. Okay. The chef realized that Pinliang didn't like the others. No wonder. He quickly got them 2 portions of stewed pork ribs and 2 bowls of egg soup. Pinliang and Xiaofu took 2 steamed buns each and sat down. Liang bro, there's poison in the food, can we still eat it? We can't die, right? Xiaofu was scared and didn't dare move his chopsticks. Fuck, I would have died if I could die. I just finished the ribs. Pinliang curled his lips. Oh, but there's still egg soup, right? We can't be poisoned if we eat both, right? Xiaofu was still worried. You idiot, I wouldn't eat it if I could be poisoned. Pinliang glared at him. Yaowang said that if you eat these 2 herbs together, not only will it not be poisonous, but it can also strengthen the kidney and boost the yang energy. I see. Xiaofu nodded but didn't dare move his chopsticks. Hurry up and eat. We're here to poison the food, and if we don't eat something before we leave, people might suspect us. Pinliang said as he started eating. Xiaofu had no choice but to bite the bullet. After a few bites, he felt that the food was delicious, and there wasn't anything wrong with his body, so he started eating. After eating, Pinliang left with Xiaofu. After all, they had just poisoned the food, and it wasn't good to stay in the cafeteria for too long. Boss, what are you thinking about? Xiaobo turned around to see Linny frowning as the last class of the morning ended. It was lunch break and Xiaobo asked curiously. It was the last semester of 12th graders and time was precious. Kong Xiaobo had to study hard, so he spent the whole morning reading books other than greeting Lin Yi. Nothing, let's go eat? Lin Yi was thinking of an excuse to get close to Jiang Wen and ask about Lingshan. Lin Yi had promised Huaijuan that he would help, but he didn't have a starting point. If it was before, Lin Yi would have barged into Jiang Wen's house and asked for Lingshan, or he'd kill him if he didn't give it to him. But now wasn't the time. Even if he killed him, he had to find a way to do it discreetly. He couldn't get involved with Lingshan. Chapter 642. Be in a dilemma, no, I'll call her. Lin Yi said as he walked out of the classroom with Kong Xiaobo. He was about to make a call when he saw Xinwen pulling Tang Yun out of the classroom. Lin Yi smiled and put down the phone. He walked over with Kong Xiaobo. Let's go to the cafeteria together? Tang Yun combed the hair on her forehead and nodded slightly. The scar on his head had already disappeared, and there was no sign of injury at all. Lin Yi, I heard you broke Zhao Qibing's legs? Lu Xinwen was a violent person, and she admired Lin Yi for breaking Zhao Qibing's leg. When Qibing came to the slums to show off, Xinwen had wanted to pick up a knife and fight him to the death. She was violent, but she wasn't an idiot. She knew that Qibing had bodyguards around him, and she wouldn't be able to do anything to him even if she went. Xinwen was very angry and worried that Tang Yan's face was disfigured, but Lin Yi broke Zhao Qibing's leg so she could vent her anger. However, Lin Yi was injured that night, and Tang Yun and Meng Yao were at loggerheads with each other, so Xinwen didn't have the chance to ask Lin Yi. Yes, I did. I was the one who ordered his building to be demolished. Lin Yi said faintly. To him, this kind of punishment wasn't much at all. Not killing Zhao Qibing was already letting him off easy. Holy shit. You're too awesome. According to the news, it collapsed because of poor quality. Xinwen naturally knew that Qibing's skyscraper had collapsed, but she didn't know that it was Lin Yi who pushed it down because the news said that it collapsed on its own. Xinwen was puzzled at that time. Even if Zhao Qibing was a developer that was devoid of conscience, he shouldn't have turned his own skyscraper into a tofu dregs project. How retarded was he? Now Lu Xinwen knew that the truth was not like that. But it's better this way. None of his houses will be sold. Xiaobo, on the other hand, didn't know about this and kept asking questions. He wasn't too surprised when he found out what had happened. Lin Yi's personality had always been like that. It was just that he'd caused a huge commotion this time. As the 4 of them talked, they walked towards the cafeteria. Suddenly, Lu Xinwen slowed down and whispered, Lin Yi, your miss is in front. Lin Yi had actually noticed Meng Yao and Yushu not too far away from them. He only shrugged when he heard Xinwen's words. Xinwen, stop. Tang Yun pulled the corner of Xinwen's shirt, stopping her from continuing. Tang Yun didn't want to talk about Meng Yao all the time. Otherwise, people would think that she was scared of Meng Yao. While Xinwen was talking about Meng Yao, Yushu was also talking about Tang Yun. Yao Yao sis, according to my latest investigation, Shield Bro and Tang Yun are behind us. Yushu whispered to Mengyao. Yao Yao sis, what should we do? Do you have any good ideas? Mengyao frowned and asked. He is our follower. We will ask him to come and eat with us later. He will be our bodyguard. Yushu thought about it and said. Mengyao hesitated. She didn't agree or disagree. She walked into the cafeteria and said, Go and order more dishes. Oh Yao sis, are you asking Shield Bro to come and eat with us? Yushu asked. Don't talk so much nonsense. Go. Mengyao said. Yushu went and bought a plate of each dish. She also bought 3 bowls of egg drop soup. It was just enough for Lin Yi's portion. The students in the school all knew Yushu. No one fought with her when she went to buy the food. It didn't take long for her to get it back. She placed it on the table. At the same time, Lin Yi and Tang Yun walked into the cafeteria. Lin Yi. Mengyao waited for Lin Yi to come in and shouted, Come here. Originally Mengyao wanted Yushu to call Lin Yi, but when she saw Tang Yun, she couldn't help but remember what she said to her that night. Her competitive spirit rose. Lin Yi didn't expect the miss to call him at this time. He paused and looked at Tang Yun apologetically. At this moment Tang Yun's face didn't look good. She didn't expect Mengyao to call Lin Yi in the school. Also, this kind of arrogant tone made Tang Yun uncomfortable. Even if Lin Yi was working for you, you didn't have to shout at him like this, right? Although Lin Yi was helpless, he still walked over. Tang Yun followed behind Lin Yi. She nervously held Lu Xinwen's hand. She was afraid that Mengyao would see through it. Tang Yun raised her head and refused to show weakness. Sit down and eat with us. Mengyao pointed at the seat next to Yushu and said to Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. If he sat here, what about Tang Yun? Tang Yun felt wronged and angry. She glared at Mengyao. She didn't understand why Mengyao was so domineering. Why did she have to go against her? She could tell that Mengyao was targeting her. Even if Lin Yi is your bodyguard, it's lunch break now. You should have your own space, right? Lu Xinwen was also a little angry. She knew Lin Yi's identity. Tang Yun didn't refute, but she had a fiery temper. He wants to protect us while we eat. Mengyao said word by word. Yeah. What if someone tries to assassinate us while we are eating? What if someone tries to poison us? Yushu was always on Mengyao's side. As soon as Mengyao opened her mouth, Yushu immediately rushed forward. Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen were speechless. They were eating in the school's cafeteria. How could someone try to assassinate them? However, even though this reason was somewhat unimaginable, it was indeed justifiable. Tang Yun didn't say anything. She only bit her lips and looked at Lin Yi. However, the more Tang Yun didn't say anything, the more Lin Yi couldn't bear to let Tang Yun eat alone. Before Miss and Tang Yun met, everything was fine. Who knew that after they met, Miss would go crazy and start fighting with Tang Yun? Lin Yi was helpless. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to choose. On one side was his employer, and on the other side was his girlfriend. His phone rang. Lin Yi relaxed. He didn't know what to say. It was a good opportunity to have a phone call. Lin Yi smiled as he looked at the caller ID. He was just wondering what reason he should use to call Jiang Wen, but Jiang Wen called him first. Chapter 643. Was there a problem with the alcohol? Bro Lin Yi, where are you? Jiang Wen's voice sounded normal, not at all unhappy, but that was exactly why Lin Yi was alarmed. I'm at school and bro, what's up? Lin Yi smiled coldly. This Jiang Wen was probably going to cause trouble again. Haha, I drank too much last night, and I didn't know what was going on. I'm sorry. Jiang Wen smiled. Are you free? Come out for dinner? Now? Lin Yi asked. Yeah, I'm at the entrance of Songshan first. What do you think? Jiang Wen smiled. Sure, wait for me, I'll go out now. If Lin Yi didn't have a grudge against Jiang Wen, he'd probably be thanking him right now. Jiang Wen's phone call helped Lin Yi out of his predicament, giving Lin Yi an excuse to leave. After hanging up, Lin Yi turned to Tang Yun and Meng. I have something to do, you guys eat first? Oh, Shield Bro, you didn't set your phone as an alarm, did you? You didn't want to eat with us, did you? Yushu asked. Ha, it's Jiang Wen. Lin Yi was already used to Yushu. Mengyao didn't say anything. Since Lin Yi had something to do, it wouldn't be good for her to stop Lin Yi from leaving. She said faintly, then be careful. Tang Yun let out a sigh of relief. Lin Yi had something to do, so he didn't have to make a choice. In fact, Tang Yun was very nervous as well. After all, Meng Yao was Lin Yi's employer. If she insisted on eating with them, Tang Yun would be angry, but she knew the bigger picture. She wouldn't force Lin Yi to let go. But that would make Tang Yun feel uncomfortable, as if she had lost to Meng Yao. But now that Lin Yi had something to do, this situation could be avoided. Go if you have something to do, I'll eat by myself. Tang Yun smiled, trying to make her smile happier and prouder. And I'll contact you by phone. Lin Yi nodded, then turned around and walked out of the cafeteria. You've ordered so many dishes. What a waste. Xinwen looked at Meng Yao's table and teased. No one's eating with you guys anymore, what a waste of food. Can't we eat it ourselves? Meng Yao glanced at Yushu. Shu, let's finish all these dishes. Oh, but I don't dare eat too much, I'll die again. Yushu said, a little scared as she remembered how she ate last time. Then I'll eat. Meng Yao didn't want Xinwen and Tang Yun to look down on her. She picked up the chopsticks and started eating. Xinwen curled her lips and pulled Tang Yun to another table with Kong Xiaobo. Kong Xiaobo, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. He only came back to his senses when Xinwen pulled him. Boss and them? Kong Xiaobo didn't know about the relationship between Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yushu. Xinwen explained to him as they walked. The situation was complicated, and it wasn't something that could be explained in a few words. Lin Yi left the school and saw Jiang Wen's car parked in front of the school gate. Jiang Wen pressed the horn twice and stuck his head out. Lil bro Lin Yi, over here. Lin Yi got in the car and Jiang Wen started the engine. I'm sorry about yesterday, I drank too much and lost my composure. Let's eat and talk? Up to you. Lin Yi could roughly guess that Jiang Wen didn't have any good intentions. Yushu's words yesterday almost made Jiang Wen go berserk. And from the faint hatred in Jiang Wen's eyes, Lin Yi knew that Jiang Wen was already treating him as a love rival. But Lin Yi didn't bother to explain. He was here to find out Ling Shan's whereabouts. Jiang Wen nodded. Starlight Hotel, it's just the two of us. Let's talk. On the way, Jiang Wen chatted with Lin Yi. But he didn't say anything important. Lin Yi didn't mind. The car stopped in the parking lot of Starlight Hotel, and the two got off the car. Under Jiang Wen's guidance, they went to a room that was a little smaller than yesterday's. Evidently, the food was pre-ordered by Jiang Wen. In the room, the wine was already prepared, and the dishes were served not long after the two sat in the room. Lil bro Lin Yi, let me toast to you first. Take it as a punishment for my lack of composure yesterday. Jiang Wen raised his glass and drained it. Lin Yi didn't raise his glass. He waited for Jiang Wen to finish before asking, and bro, is there something you want to talk to me about? Indeed. But Lil bro Lin Yi, let's drink first. We'll talk about other things later. With that, Jiang Wen poured a glass of wine for Lin Yi and filled his own as well. Come, let's have a drink. Lin Yi nodded and picked up his glass. However, the jade on him reacted immediately and started to warn him. Lin Yi smiled coldly in his heart. Jiang Wen really wasn't willing to give up. He was trying to do something to him again. However, Lin Yi didn't expose him. He still raised his glass and took a sip of the wine. Then he put the glass down and started to think of a plan. What Jiang Wen put in the glass was a very common knockout drug. After drinking it, the person would feel drowsy and pass out soon after. Mystic Class wasn't strong enough to force the poison out of his body. Without the help of needles, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to expel the poison out of his body. As a result, Lin Yi wasn't stupid enough to drink the drug directly. This drug was very common. Lin Yi's antidote could neutralize it. When he was on a mission in the forest in Africa, there were a lot of hallucinogenic plants and poisonous insects. If he didn't have this kind of drug with him, it would be very dangerous. However, after returning to the city, this situation didn't exist anymore. Lin Yi didn't bring the antidote with him. He was regretting it now. What's wrong, Lil bro Lin Yi? Are you not going to give me face? Jiang Wen saw that Lin Yi didn't finish the wine in one gulp and put it down instead. And bro, I don't feel safe. Is there a problem with the wine this time? Lin Yi pretended to be worried and asked. Chapter 644. Chapter 644. Lin Yi fainted, really? Lin Yi didn't seem to believe it. There's nothing wrong with the cup, right? I say, Linny bro, you sure are cautious. Jangwon shook his head with a smile. But it's fine if you think there's something wrong with the cup, we can swap. You use my cup and I use yours? I'm not swapping, I'll drink your cup, how's that? Sure. With that, Linny stood up with his cup in hand and walked to Jangwon. He crouched down and placed his free hand on Jangwon's shoulder, as if he was afraid that he'd fall. He looked at Jangwon's cup for a while before swapping his cup with Jangwon's and returning to his seat. Linny bro, you're hurting my pride by doing this. I don't mean to hurt you, but you're thinking of me like this. Alright, let's drink. Jangwon raised the cup Linny had just swapped and drank it all in one gulp. In actuality, Jangwon had drugged the wine, but he'd taken the antidote beforehand, so the drug had no effect on him. Seems like I'm being too careful. Linny laughed at himself before raising his cup. Between Linny's fingers, however, was a pill-like object. It was from a small bottle he'd gotten from Jangwon's pocket. Linny first licked the pill between his fingers, confirming that it was the antidote. He then swallowed the antidote while drinking. This saved Linny a lot of energy. With the antidote in his hand, Linny didn't have to think of anything else. Otherwise, Linny might have to sneak a few needles into his body while drinking. He didn't have the antidote, but Linny had his needles with him. Jangwon smiled to himself when he saw that Linny was finally willing to drink. You may be cunning, but you didn't expect me to be so smart, did you? I didn't drug you only in your wine glass, but all of it. I just took the antidote first. Lil bro Linny, I your big brother like Meng Yao. You know that, so I won't say much. I invited you here today because I want you to tell me one thing. What's your relationship with Meng Yao? Jangwon had made up his mind to deal with Lin Yi, but he still wanted to confirm the relationship between Lin Yi and Meng Yao. Hey, didn't I say it before? She's my employer, Lin Yi said indifferently. But why did Yushu say that Yao Yao and you? Jangwon wasn't happy that Lin Yi wouldn't admit to it. Meng Yao didn't confirm Yushu's words yesterday, but she didn't deny it either. From Jangwon's point of view, Lin Yi and Meng Yao's relationship was very close. She's always been like that, don't you know? Lin Yi shrugged. Is that so? It seems that Lil bro Lin Yi still thinks of me as an outsider. You don't want to tell me the truth. Jangwon was even more annoyed that Lin Yi wouldn't admit to it. I'm not an unreasonable person. If there's really something going on between you and Meng Yao, I'll give you my blessings as long as Meng Yao is willing. Thank you, at least for now. I don't know if there'll be anything in the future. Lin Yi didn't need to lie to Jangwon. Forget it. Let's drink. Jangwon raised his glass again. Lin Yi clinked his glass with Jangwon's and drank it all in one gulp. It was about time. The drug should be taking effect soon. Lin Yi held his forehead. And bro, isn't the alcohol going to my head? Why do I feel dizzy? No way, isn't this the Lafite we drank yesterday? Why would it go to my head? Jangwon knew that the drug was working just by looking at Lin Yi's face. He was overjoyed but put on a weird look on his face. What's going on? Although Jangwon really wanted to point at Lin Yi right now and yell, Who told you to steal Meng Yao from me? I'll cut off your kidney and see how you're going to fight me then. But Jangwon didn't dare to do that. He knew how strong Lin Yi was. He was at least a golden class master. He was afraid that Lin Yi would attack him the moment he fainted. But, I'm really dizzy. Lin Yi fainted on the table. Lin Yi was an expert in medicine. He knew the effects of drug poisoning like the back of his hand. Jangwon couldn't see through his act. Plus, the drug was administered by Jangwon himself. Naturally, he wouldn't suspect that Lin Yi was faking it. Seeing that Lin Yi had fainted, Jangwon was overjoyed. He took out his phone and called the tattooed guy who was waiting nearby. Come in. He has fainted. Help me get him out of here. Jangwon said and hung up. After a while, the tattooed guy pushed the door open. When bro, it's done? Yes, it's done. Help me get him out. Jangwon stood up and pointed at Lin Yi. The tattooed guy nodded and carried Lin Yi out of the room with Jangwon. There were a lot of customers and waiters in the hotel, but no one paid attention to Jangwon and the tattooed guy. After all, there were a lot of drunk people here. Some were being helped out by their friends, some were being dragged out, and some were being carried out. No one cared if Lin Yi had fainted or was drunk. Lin Yi, you didn't expect this, did you? Going against me? I'll let you have a taste of losing a kidney. Jiang Wen said as he glared at Lin Yi in the back seat after getting in the car. When bro, will there be any problem if we cut off his kidney? Will he call the police after he finds out about us? The tattooed guy asked worriedly. After all, Lin Yi knew Jiang Wen. If he lost a kidney, Jiang Wen would be the first suspect. He won't. This kid is not a good person. He has killed many people before. He won't call the police. Jiang Wen didn't believe that Lin Yi would call the police. Sihua said that 2 of his golden class masters died in Lin Yi's hands. Plus, if he asks, we'll just say that he was drunk and left him at the hotel. As for who cut off his kidney, he doesn't have any evidence. The tattooed guy nodded. Since Jiang Wen said that everything was fine, he wouldn't ask anymore. He started the car and drove to the HQ. Chapter 645. What a coincidence if he didn't bring Lin Yi to his base. He would have to think of a way to follow Jiang Wen. But now he didn't even need to follow Lin Yi anymore. Jiang Wen drove him to the HQ himself. Oh right, has Dr. Wang made the arrangements? Jiang Wen asked. Yes, Dr. Wang is already in the operating room. He can do the surgery anytime. The tattooed guy said, oh right, the girl we caught yesterday, are we going to push her to the operating table as well? Oh, there's no rush. Let's cut off Lin Yi first. Lingshan will be at the back. Jiang Wen's hatred towards Lin Yi had reached a certain level. As for Lingshan, it was secondary. Lingshan is awake? Based on the time, she should be waking up soon, right? The tattooed guy calculated the time and said, then why don't you go in and get some knockout drugs? She's a golden class master. And even though our prison door is pretty sturdy, what if she escapes? Jiang Wen panicked. That's right. Okay. I'll make the arrangements now. The tattooed guy was shocked as well. He quickly called the aquiline nose guy. The aquiline nose guy had returned to the HQ yesterday. He was one of the tattooed guy's confidants, but he didn't know about Jiang Wen's existence. In fact, in the entire kidney trafficking organization, Jiang Wen was at the top of the pyramid. The only people who knew about him were the tattooed guy and Dr. Wang. Tattooed bro, what's up? The aquiline nose guy picked up the phone quickly. The girl we caught yesterday. Get her some knockout drugs. The tattooed guy ordered. Ah, knockout drugs? Okay, I'll do it now. The aquiline nose guy was startled. Why was there a need for knockout drugs? Was there a need for knockout drugs when he was playing with women in the HQ's prison? Even if the girl screamed and screamed, it didn't matter. Yes, the aquiline nose guy suddenly realized that there were many types of knockout drugs. Could it be that the drug the tattooed guy was talking about was the aphrodisiac? The aquiline nose guy felt that it was highly possible. Otherwise, why would there be a need for knockout drugs? Therefore, the hook-nosed man did not dare to delay and hurriedly carried out the order. Lin Yi was in the back of the car when he heard about Lingshan. It was quite a pleasant surprise. This was really a case of walking all over the place in iron shoes, only to find it by chance without even looking for it. So Lingshan was locked in the dungeon. This was an important piece of information. The car slowly drove to a manor that looked like a villa. Lin Yi remained unconscious. After entering the manor, Lin Yi was pushed onto a stretcher and pushed into a white room. On one side of the wall was a pile of instruments. Jiang Wen put on a mask as well, disguising himself as a normal medical worker. His identity couldn't be exposed in this kidney trafficking organization. Lin Yi's finger was cut, and some blood samples were taken for testing. The reason why Lin Yi allowed these people to do what they wanted was because he had his own plans. These people wouldn't cause any harm to him, so Lin Yi might as well continue to pretend to be unconscious. As for Lingshan, Lin Yi was sure that before his kidney was cut, she would be safe, so Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. These medical workers came and went quickly. After checking Lin Yi's body and drawing his blood, they all left the room. Only the tattooed guy and Jiang Wen were left in the room. After a while, a medical worker wearing a white coat walked in again and passed a report to the tattooed guy. Boss, this person's kidney matches the one you asked us to pay attention to. Oh. The tattooed guy took the report from Lin Yi and was slightly stunned. He then waved his hand at the medical worker and said, "You can leave first." Yes. The medical worker left the room respectfully. When bro, Lin Yi's kidney is exactly what Zhong Pingliang needs. Don't you think it's a coincidence? The tattooed guy passed the report to Jiang Wen and said in surprise, "Oh, then I'll do him a favor. Go call Zhong Fabai and ask him to arrange a kidney transplant for Zhong Pingliang." Jiang Wen said excitedly, "I didn't expect that Zhong Pingliang lost a kidney because of Lin Yi, and now Lin Yi's kidney is given to him. Ha ha ha, what do you call this? This is karma." "Okay, when bro, I'll go arrange it now." The tattooed guy nodded. "I'll get someone to change Lin Yi's clothes and push him to the operating table?" "Yes, you change his clothes first. I'll push him to the operating table myself later." Jiang Wen looked at Lin Yi and smiled coldly. The tattooed guy went out to inform Zhong Fabai to come over and do the kidney transplant for Zhong Pingliang. On Lin Yi's side, a few people came over and helped Lin Yi change into a surgical gown. Jiang Wen sat at the side and stared coldly at Lin Yi, who was being manipulated by others. There was an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. "How dare you steal Mengyao from me? This is your ending. Zhong Pingliang is like this, and Lin Yi will also be like this." Although he did give him a kidney this time, it was because of Zhao Qibing that he was willing to give face to Pinliang. However, the lesson was given. He believed that Zhong Pingliang wouldn't dare to touch Mengyao in the future. Zhong Pingliang looked at the students entering the cafeteria one after another, and he felt a surge of satisfaction in his heart. Some of these students would probably be sent to the hospital later, right? Zhong Pingliang was about to report this good news to his father, but he didn't expect his father to call him first. "Pinliang, where are you?" Zhong Fabai's voice was a little nervous. After all, his son was doing a very dangerous crime. "Did you complete it smoothly?" "Dad, I'm at the school field." "Don't worry. Fu and I have completed the mission," Zhong Pingliang said proudly. "That's good." Zhong Fabai breathed out in relief. "Since it's done, I can report to Master Bing now. You have to be careful in school. Don't let anyone see through you." "That's easy, Fu and I are normal," Zhong Pingliang said casually. He didn't care about the safety of other students at all. Fabai nodded and ended the call. He made an okay gesture to Zihua. "Pinliang has already put the poison into the food. We just need to wait and see what happens next." Zihua nodded. "Pinliang has already put the poison into the food. We just need to wait and see." Chapter 646. Too good news, okay? "Thanks for the trouble, Master Bing." Fabai nodded happily. In fact, if it wasn't for Zihua's promise, Fabai wouldn't have let his son take the risk. After all, he only had one son, and he didn't want him to go to jail. As soon as Fabai finished his sentence, Zihua's phone rang. Zihua took out his phone and looked at it. It was Jiang Wen's underling, the tattooed guy. "Hello?" Zihua quickly picked up the phone. After all, they were in a cooperative relationship, and Jiang Wen would bring him a lot of profits every month. "Zihua bro? It's me." Jiang Wen bro said that he has found a suitable kidney for Pinliang. He wants him to come over immediately for the kidney transplant. The tattooed guy said to Zihua. "Oh, found it already? That's great, thank you so much." Zihua didn't expect that he would speak of the devil. He just told Fabai about finding a kidney for Pinliang, and Jiang Wen had already settled it. "It's a win-win situation," the tattooed guy said. "I will send a car to Floating Cloud Bar to pick up Pinliang in half an hour. Zihua bro, you can make the arrangements." "Okay, see you in half an hour." Zihua hung up the phone and smiled at Fabai. "Old Zhong, I have to congratulate you." "Congratulate me? Congratulate me for what?" Fabai's heart skipped a beat. He heard Zihua say that he found something on the phone, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Now that Zihua wanted to congratulate him, Fabai's heart started beating faster. He thought of a possibility that made him excited. "Pinliang's kidney has been found. We can proceed with the kidney transplant now," Zihua said. "Jiang Wen will send a car over in half an hour. Tell Pinliang to wait at the Floating Cloud Bar. He can go there directly." "Really?" Fabai was very excited. He only had one son, and this was his only son. Although he didn't say anything, his heart still felt like it was blocked by a big stone every day. It was very uncomfortable. He wanted to solve it, but there was nothing he could do. He could only stop thinking about it. However, some things couldn't be solved without thinking. The reason why he let Pinliang take the risk to poison the school cafeteria was because Master Bing had promised him that he wouldn't let Pinliang do it for free. He would talk to Jiang Wen and ask him to find a compatible kidney for Pinliang, so that he could implant a new kidney for Pinliang. As for whether or not Master Bing could greet him, and whether or not Jiang Wen would give him face after greeting him, Zhong Fabai couldn't control that, but it was better to have hope than no hope at all. But what he didn't expect was that Master Bing was so efficient. His son had just poisoned him, and he had found a suitable kidney source right after. Master Bing never mistreats those who work for him, Sihua said with a smile. As long as we follow in Master Bing's footsteps, we'll be living a good life. Yeah, Master Bing is really a good boss. He's worth following, Fabai said from the bottom of his heart. He was afraid that Master Bing was just using him and didn't take him seriously. But now, it seemed like Master Bing always remembered his difficulties. Even when he was lying on the sickbed with a broken leg, he didn't forget to help Pinliang find a kidney. I'll go thank Master Bing personally and show my loyalty? Fabai nodded. No need, Master Bing should be resting. Sihua waved his hand and said, you should call Pinliang first and ask him to come over. Jiang Wen will send a car here soon. Don't delay the business. Of course. Fabai agreed and said, I'll drive to pick up Pinliang now. However, before Fabai left, Sihua's phone rang again. Sihua took it out and saw that it was still a call from the tattooed guy. So he made a gesture to Fabai, signaling him to wait for a while before leaving. Hello? Tattooed bro, is there anything else? Sihua picked up the phone. Haha, I almost forgot. I have a good news for Sihua bro. The tattooed guy said with a smile. Oh, there's another good news? What news? Sihua asked. When bro, I told Master Bing that the kidney for Pinliang was taken from Lin Yi's body. The tattooed guy said faintly. What? Lin Yi? Sihua was shocked at first, but then he became excited. I say, tattooed bro, is it true? You guys caught Lin Yi? You guys are going to take his kidney? Haha, when bro has a grudge against him too, but his kidney just happened to be compatible with Pinliang's. The tattooed guy laughed. I heard that he has a grudge against Master Bing and Sihua bro. It's not just a grudge. It's a huge grudge. Sihua said with hatred. I have to thank Master N for this. No problem, I'll hang up first. I'll send a car over later. The tattooed guy suddenly remembered that Lin Yi had a grudge against Sihua and Master Bing too. So he made another call to do them a favor. Sihua hung up the phone and was so happy that he almost jumped up. Lin Yi, you have this day? Is it over? His kidney is going to be taken, right? Fabai was at the side, and this time he heard it clearly. When he heard that Lin Yi's kidney was going to be given to his son, he was so happy that his face was blooming. Sihua bro, from what I heard, they are going to give Lin Yi's kidney to Pinliang. Haha. Yeah, I didn't think that there would be such a coincidence, but it's great. I'll have to tell Master Bing about this as soon as possible and make him happy. Sihua said as he walked into the inner room of the bar to look for Master Bing. Zhao Qibing was sleeping, and he was pissed that Sihua woke him up. But when he heard the news that Lin Yi's kidney was going to be removed, he didn't feel sleepy anymore. If it weren't for the fact that his leg was broken, he would have jumped up from his bed and cheered. The person he hated the most was Lin Yi. No matter how Jiang Wen caught Lin Yi and how Lin Yi's kidney was going to be taken, he was still very happy. As long as Lin Yi was unlucky, he would be happy. It would be best if Lin Yi died in a car accident. Fabai also took the opportunity to express his gratitude and loyalty to Zhao Qibing. Chapter 647. Pinliang's family dad? Why are you calling me again? Pinliang didn't know why Fabai was calling him again after hanging up not long ago. Son, I have 2 great news for you. Fabai said excitedly. Ah, what good news? There are 2 more? Pinliang could hear the excitement in his father's voice, but he didn't know what could make his father so excited. Especially 2 good news. Son, the first good news is that you'll be able to regain your manhood very soon. Master Bing talked to Jiang Wen, and he's found you a suitable kidney. I'm going to the school to pick you up and take you to the kidney transplant. Fabai said excitedly. I have a kidney? I finally have a kidney? Pinliang almost dropped his phone. He couldn't believe it. Dad, did I hear it wrong? I'm going to be a healthy man soon? You didn't hear it wrong. I'm on the way to the school to pick you up. Fabai said, that's why, son, you didn't do this for nothing. We are working for Master Bing, and Master Bing is really considerate of us. We have a kidney now. Okay, I'll wait for you at the school gate. Pinliang didn't care about Xiaofu's surprised look and ran to the school gate. Wait, son, this is only the first good news. There's another good news. Fabai was afraid that Pinliang would hang up and quickly said, the second good news is even better than the first. There's more good news? What news could be better than this? Pinliang was taken aback. As far as he was concerned, getting a compatible kidney and restoring his manhood was the best thing that could happen to him. How could there be anything better than this? The news is that the kidney you want is Lin Yi's. Fabai laughed. Lin Yi was captured by Jiang Wen, and coincidentally, his kidney is a match for yours. Wahahaha. Pinliang started laughing so hard that tears were coming out of his eyes. This is good news, it couldn't get any better than this. Lin Yi's kidney is going to be transferred to me? It felt so good. In the future, when I pick up girls, I will always think that Lin Yi has contributed to me. Wait for me. I'll pick you up from school. Fabai was happy to see his son so happy. Xiaofu chased after Pinliang out of the school, confused. He saw Pinliang smiling happily and couldn't help but ask after Pinliang hung up, Liang bro, what's wrong? Why are you smiling so happily? Haha, you don't know. Pinliang hung up, still overjoyed. Fu, I'm going to have a kidney soon. My dad just called and said that he's found a suitable kidney, and he's going to give me a transplant soon. Ah, then I really have to congratulate brother Liang. Gao Xiaofu hurriedly congratulated after hearing the news. Yeah, I'm about to regain my masculinity. Let's see if those people still laugh at me for having only one kidney. Pinliang nodded. Other than that, there's another piece of good news. Guess whose kidney is going to be given to me? Whose? Xiaofu was far away, so he didn't hear the conversation between Pinliang and Fabai. Haha, it's Lin Yi's. Pinliang said excitedly. Lin Yi's kidney is going to be given to me. Don't you think it's a good thing? Xiaofu was stunned, but when he regained his composure, he started laughing with Pinliang. It was indeed a good thing Lin Yi was changed into a patient's gown. Jiang Wen dismissed the medical staff and personally pushed Lin Yi towards the surgery room. Lin Yi, you didn't expect this, did you? Your kidney is going to be removed soon. And the funniest part is that it's going to be given to Zhong Pinliang. In the preparation room, Jiang Wen couldn't help but mock Lin Yi, who was about to be taken advantage of. Yeah, I didn't expect it and I didn't expect it, Lin Yi said. It's okay if you didn't expect it, but your kidney is going to be removed soon. Huh? Jiang Wen almost jumped up in fright. Why did Lin Yi talk like that? Wasn't he unconscious? Could it be that he was hallucinating? Just when Jiang Wen wanted to confirm if he was hallucinating, he saw Lin Yi sitting up from the stretcher and looking at him with a faint smile. Why are you awake? Jiang Wen finally understood that he wasn't hallucinating. Otherwise, he wouldn't be hallucinating, right? Lin Yi really woke up. I didn't faint in the first place, Lin Yi shrugged and said. That's impossible. I clearly drugged the wine, so why didn't you faint? Jiang Wen said as he slowly leaned towards the wall on the other side. There was an emergency button on it. Although Lin Yi woke up, Jiang Wen wasn't nervous other than being a little surprised. This was the headquarters of the kidney trafficking organization, and Jiang Wen didn't believe that Lin Yi could do anything. As long as he pressed the button, the preparation room would be filled with the drug. This was designed to prevent people who had their kidneys removed from exploding, but it had never been used before. Your question is a little stupid. Why didn't you faint? Of course I didn't faint, Lin Yi said. I have the antidote. Jiang Wen was willing to buy time with Lin Yi. He slowly leaned towards the wall. Yes, you're right, Lin Yi nodded and said. You have the antidote on you and I took it. Huh. Jiang Wen suddenly remembered that Lin Yi did approach him once when they were drinking, and he even patted him a couple of times. Could it be that he stole the antidote from him at that time? Alright, you don't have to think about pressing the button anymore. Go to the operating table for the kidney transplant. With that, Lin Yi jumped up from the stretcher and struck Jiang Wen's neck with his hand. Jiang Wen didn't even make a sound before he fainted. Linny controlled his strength very well. He couldn't kill Jiangwen, but he wouldn't wake up anytime soon. Linny massaged Jiangwen's body casually. These were a few acupuncture points that could make Jiangwen feel no pain when he fainted. Linny wasn't sure if there would be anesthetics during the kidney transplant, and if the anesthetics would keep Jiangwen unconscious. So, just to be safe, Linny decided to do it himself for the success of the kidney transplant. Chapter 648. Chapter 648, Lingshan's trouble. Linny took off the patient's gown and Jiangwen's clothes and put them on himself. He put the gown on Jiangwen and a surgical cap on him, placing him on the stretcher. At least from the looks of it, people who didn't know Jiangwen well wouldn't be able to recognize him. After doing all this, Linny walked out of the preparation room and went downstairs to look for Lingshan. Other than a phone and a box of needles, there was nothing else in the gown. Linny wasn't in a rush to get it. What if he bumped into Jiangwen's underlings? Lingshan woke up in a daze and knew that she had been tricked. The other party should have already known his identity. Otherwise, after locking him in the dungeon, why would they use knockout drugs to make him faint? They must be afraid of her strength as a golden class. That's why they used drugs on her. But there was nothing Lingshan could do. She couldn't just breathe, could she? The moment she breathed, there would be drugs in the air. He'd just woken up and there were no more drugs in the air. Evidently, the enemy didn't send any more drugs into the dungeon. Perhaps they'd forgotten that he was a golden class, and his body was better than a normal person's. Lingshan had woken up earlier than normal people. The first thing Lingshan did was check to see if her phone and signal transmitter were taken, but both were still there. Lingshan couldn't help but feel doubtful. Could it be that they didn't do a body search on her? She was right. Jiangwen really didn't search her body. There was no need. The entire kidney trafficking organization's HQ blocked all signals. Even if Lingshan had a communication device, she wouldn't be able to contact the outside world. Another reason was Lingshan's strength. Jiangwen didn't have a golden class with him. Naturally, he wasn't a match for Lingshan. He didn't dare to touch her. Lingshan couldn't help but smile bitterly as she looked at the phone with no signal. As expected. Otherwise, with Lu Wangli's efficiency, there was no way he couldn't find her. He wouldn't let her stay unconscious for more than a night. The time on the phone showed that it was noon of the next day. He had been asleep for more than 10 hours. Lingshan got up and checked the situation in the dungeon. At least she wouldn't be able to break through this kind of defense. The thickness of the door was something that only a golden class late phase peak could break through, and she was only golden class mid phase peak. She was still very far away from the next level. And so Lingshan didn't bother with that pointless. She continued searching for other exits. All of a sudden, a strange aroma filled the air of the dungeon. Lingshan frowned. Could it be that the guy had sensed that she was awake and was trying to drug the dungeon again? As expected, after some searching, Lingshan found 2 cameras in 2 places that weren't easily detected. They were probably monitoring her through these 2 cameras. With that thought, Lingshan didn't hold her breath. Even if she did, she'd only be able to hold her breath for a little while. She couldn't hold her breath forever, could she? And so, Lingshan went with the flow and didn't resist breathing in the fragrance in the air normally. But after a while, Lingshan didn't feel like sleeping at all. Instead, she felt a sense of excitement, as if her blood was boiling, as if she had an endless amount of energy. Could it be that the guy made a mistake and sent the stimulant into the dungeon? But, very quickly Lingshan realized that the gas the enemy let in wasn't a stimulant. Lingshan could only feel her body heating up. Her body was burning up, and she had a strong sexual impulse. Lingshan had never had a boyfriend before, and she hadn't done that kind of thing before. But this kind of physiological phenomenon was understandable. She was a normal woman. She would have erotic dreams once in a while, but she had a lot of self-control and she was busy with work so she could control it better. But under the influence of a strong aphrodisiac like this, how could she control it just by having strong self-control? Because of her profession, Lingshan had done a lot of research on aphrodisiacs, and she knew how strong these drugs were. With that thought, Lingshan started panicking. What were these people trying to do? Were they trying to use this method to have sex with her? That didn't seem right. She might be under the influence of the aphrodisiac, but she still had her golden class mid-phase strength. Unless they had eaten a leopard's balls, they wouldn't dare barge in at this time. But, if it wasn't for this, why would they send the aphrodisiac into the dungeon? At first, Lingshan tried her best to control herself, but as she absorbed more and more of the aphrodisiac, Lingshan's eyes started to blur. But Lingshan's mind was still clear, just that her body's reaction wasn't under control. Lingshan couldn't help but moan, scaring even Lingshan herself. Would there ever be a day where she would moan like this? Lingshan had always been a headstrong person, but now she was feeling very embarrassed. But even so, Lingshan's hands couldn't help but want to tear off her clothes camera. Lingshan suddenly remembered the camera, and her heart skipped a beat. The criminals wouldn't be trying to film her, would they? Think about it. If the recording of her **** was in someone's hands, she'd be better off dead. Lingshan bit down hard on her lips, and the intense pain woke her up for a moment. She had to destroy the camera, otherwise she'd really be done for. Even if she didn't die this time, she wouldn't have the face to continue being a captain, let alone working in the police station. Lingshan knew that she wouldn't be able to resist the aphrodisiac's effects, so she had to destroy everything that could threaten her before the aphrodisiac took effect. Luckily, the dungeon walls weren't very high, and the camera was only 3 meters from the ground. This height was nothing for a golden class, and Lingshan was a golden class mid-phase peak. Chapter 649. The poison Lingshan. As for the other camera in the corner, Lingshan did the same thing and broke it with a kick. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. Without the threat of the camera, Lingshan couldn't hold it in anymore. Although she didn't want to touch herself, her body couldn't be controlled by her thoughts. Lingshan was in pain, feeling like her body was on fire, and if she didn't let it out soon, she'd burn to death. Lingshan's breathing was getting more and more hurried, and she really couldn't take it anymore. Her mind couldn't control her body anymore. Jangwon's HQ wasn't big. In fact, it was only 3 floors and there was only one fire escape. Linny found the entrance to the basement very quickly. This should be the prison the tattooed guy was talking about. At the entrance there was a metal door. It looked very sturdy, but for Linny's current strength it was nothing. Linny stood in front of the metal door and didn't rush. He waited for a while and the jade on his chest didn't react. This meant that there was no danger in here that could threaten him. This jade pendant had become Linny's golden finger. It was also because of this that Linny's luck seemed to always be on the rise, allowing him to avoid danger time and time again. Only then did Linny kick the metal door. With a loud bang, the metal door collapsed in half from Linny's kick. Linny didn't want to hurt Lingshan inside, so he didn't use his full strength. Otherwise, the metal door would have flown out. This was an easy feat for a mystic early phase. When the metal door was half collapsed, Linny gave it another kick, and the metal door fell to the ground with a loud bang. Lingshan was scared out of her wits. She stopped what she was doing, and the desire in her body seemed to have stopped as well. She didn't know what was going on, but when she saw that the metal door had completely collapsed, and it seemed to be destroyed by an external force, she couldn't be more shocked. How much strength was needed to knock down this iron door? Lingshan knew that she wouldn't be able to do it herself, and even a golden class mid-phase peak couldn't do it, so how strong would the person be? Or maybe this iron gate wasn't brought down by human hands at all, but with the help of some equipment? But when Lingshan saw Linny step through the iron door, she knew that her initial guess was correct. The iron door had been kicked down, and this person was someone she knew. It was the Linny she hated and was pissed off at the same time. Lingshan didn't know why, but she felt relieved when she saw Linny. When Linny stepped in, she didn't feel any disgust, but a sense of admiration. Was it because of his strength? He kicked down this iron door? No matter what, Lingshan had to admit that Linny was strong, very, very strong. At this moment, Lingshan finally understood that Linny's strength was far higher than hers. No wonder Huaijuan respected him so much. He really did have strength. Her heart relaxed, and the desire in her body took over again. Lingshan's hands couldn't help but reach towards her sensitive parts. This made Lingshan embarrassed and annoyed. She should be happy that Linny came to save her, but she wished that Linny would come later. The desire in her body flowed out uncontrollably, making it hard for her to breathe. Lingshan's eyes became blurry again, and the amount of medicine she breathed in was getting bigger and bigger, and she couldn't control herself anymore. I can't. Linny is right in front of me. How can I do this? This was the last bit of consciousness in Lingshan's mind. The next moment, the desire in her body flooded her body like a flood, and she couldn't use her brain to control her body and words anymore. Lingshan screamed, and her hands tore at the clothes on her body, her legs tight as if she wanted to release something, but she was stupid. This was the first time she wanted to release the desire in her body, but she couldn't find a way. She couldn't do it, and so she tore at the clothes on her body even more crazily. She was going crazy. When Linny walked in, he saw Lingshan on the floor, but she was acting strangely, as if she was having epilepsy, twisting around on the floor. What was she doing? Linny sniffed the air in the dungeon, and found something unusual. Aphrodisiac. A very common aphrodisiac that permeated the air in the dungeon. Tang Yun was poisoned by this aphrodisiac back then. Smelling it, Linny subconsciously held his breath. He didn't want to end up like Lingshan. Mystic class was stronger than Golden class, not only because of the increase in strength, but also because the Mystic class had learned how to use the turtle breathing technique. The turtle breathing technique meant that one could breathe like a turtle and live forever without food or drink. When a turtle slept, it breathed very slowly. Of course, Linny couldn't really be like a turtle, but he could slow down his breathing speed. Linny breathed like this, and he could avoid taking in too much of the aphrodisiac. Even if he did take in a small amount, it was completely negligible. But Linny could use the turtle breathing technique, and Lingshan couldn't. You've been poisoned with an aphrodisiac. Linny walked in front of Lingshan, and before he could even finish, Lingshan hugged him and climbed onto Linny's body, wrapping her arms around his neck. At this moment, Lingshan's golden class mid-phase strength was being used to its fullest, and her entire body was very light. Normal people wouldn't be able to do such a high-difficulty movement. Help me. I can't take it anymore, it's so uncomfortable. Lingshan's eyes were closed, and her mouth was messy as she moved closer to kiss Linny. Linny frowned. He didn't expect Lingshan to have such an intense reaction. This aphrodisiac wasn't the strongest, but it varied from person to person. Some people might have a mild reaction after being poisoned, but Tang Yun had a reaction too, but it wasn't as severe as hers. Don't move. Linny frowned as he pried Lingshan's hands away, wanting to push her off his body, but as soon as he pried one hand away, another hand grabbed onto him, making Linny very depressed. Chapter 650. Chapter 650. Can't help you, I didn't bring my needles with me, so I can't cure you quickly. Just bear with it. Linny's needles were in his pocket, but Jangwon took off his shirt and threw it upstairs. Linny didn't expect something like this to happen. If he had known, he would have brought the needles with him. I'll bring you out now. Just hold on until we get to the hospital. As for whether or not Lingshan was in danger, Linny couldn't do anything. She wasn't Tang Yun, not Linny's girlfriend. Linny couldn't help her in any other way. Plus, Tang Yun could use a massage technique to expel the poison out of her body. One reason was that Tang Yun didn't take as much as Lingshan, so the reaction wasn't as intense. Massaging would solve the problem quickly, but Lingshan's situation was more serious. It wasn't something that could be solved in a short amount of time. Linny didn't want to waste time here. No, I feel like my chi is going to explode. I can't take it anymore. Help me, I beg you. Lingshan felt that something was wrong with her situation. Her practitioner's arts leaned towards the feminine type, and this aphrodisiac seemed to conflict with her practitioner's arts. Or rather, it caused the chi in her body to resonate. Lingshan felt that if she didn't release it soon, her body might explode at any moment. Chi is going to explode? Linny didn't expect the aphrodisiac to have such a side effect. He had never been affected by it before, and Tang Yun was a normal person. Naturally, she wouldn't be like Lingshan right now. Could it be that Lingshan's reaction was so strong because she was a practitioner? Yes, help Miss Braindead. I beg you. Lingshan was on the verge of crying. She felt embarrassed begging Linny like this, but it was better than dying. At this moment, Lingshan was on the verge of breaking down. Use your hands then. I'll go guard the door for you. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly, taking advantage of the moment Lingshan wasn't paying attention to get off him. Lingshan was both angry and embarrassed that Lin Yi wasn't helping her. Was she that unattractive? He wasn't even interested in touching her? In actuality, Lingshan was accusing Lin Yi wrongly. It was a lie that Lin Yi wasn't interested in her. But Lin Yi didn't do it. Lin Yi had a lot of self-control, and there were plenty of chances for a one-night stand, but Lin Yi hated physical contact without a foundation of feelings. That was why he pushed Lingshan away. Of course, if Miss Braindead wanted to be his girlfriend one day, Lin Yi wouldn't mind pushing her down. Lingshan saw that Lin Yi really did turn around and walk towards the door, and she was so pissed she wanted to curse at him. She'd already made herself very clear, and all she needed to say was please come to me. But it was ignored by Lin Yi. Forget it, Lingshan was in despair. She might as well rely on herself. She might as well do it herself. Although she hadn't done it before, she could try it out with her own intelligence. She should be able to do it. And so Lingshan bravely took the first step under her embarrassment and anger. Although she really didn't want to do it in front of Lin Yi, she thought about her own situation, and that she was in the kidney trafficking company's HQ. If she still hesitated and others barged in, she might as well just die. As for Lin Yi, she didn't really care. Her reputation was ruined in his hands, and everyone in the police station already knew that she was Lin Yi's girlfriend, and she'd already done that thing for him in the hospital. What was there to worry about? Anyway, she'd always acted coquettishly in front of him. She'd already broken the pot, and it didn't itch anymore. Lingshan started to comfort herself. Although she herself felt that these reasons were a little far-fetched, there was another voice in her head that instantly took over, urging her to move on to the next step. It was just that some things couldn't be realized just by thinking about it. The more Lingshan panicked, the less she felt. In most situations like this, mental cooperation was the most important thing, but right now, all she could think about was the criminal organization. She was deep in the enemy's lair, and how could she focus on anything like that? Besides, when doing this kind of thing, she needed someone to fantasize about, right? Who was she fantasizing about? Movie stars? Martial arts masters? Lingshan's gaze suddenly fell on Lin Yi. Lin Yi's figure wasn't that big, but it was extremely attractive, and Lingshan couldn't move her eyes away anymore. Her breathing slowly became faster, and her eyes became crazy. At the moment when she was about to explode, she couldn't help but shout loudly, Lin Yi, use more strength. Huh. Lin Yi, who was standing guard at the door, jumped when he heard Lingshan's shout. She couldn't be fantasizing about him, could she? After going crazy, Lingshan's eyes were a little blurry as she laid on the ground, panting heavily. She didn't think that her first time would be completed in a situation like this. Lingshan didn't dare look at Lin Yi. She really didn't have the face to face anyone this time. Calling out Lin Yi's name at the last moment. How was she supposed to live like this? You done? Lin Yi turned around to see that Lingshan still hadn't pulled up her pants, and her bra wasn't buttoned up either. She was just lying on the ground, looking like she was waiting to be trampled on. Lin Yi was a little moved. Lin Yi moved his eyes away unnaturally, trying not to think about these things. But he had to admit that Lingshan's body was really good, very hot. The places that should be big were big, and the places that should be perky were perky. Women who practice martial arts were really different. Lingshan saw that Lin Yi had come over, and quickly put on her clothes, but she didn't have much strength left. Her body felt like it was going to fall apart, and she couldn't move at all. Her entire body was just too lazy, but she had to admit that it felt really good, especially when she called out Lin Yi's name. She felt like she was flying, the pure chi and lust in her body being released at the same time, making her feel light as a feather. She couldn't even describe how relaxed she felt. Thinking about how Lin Yi had seen her before, and how she did something so embarrassing in front of Lin Yi, Lingshan got over it. What else could she do? Which woman hadn't been seen by a man before? This day would come sooner or later, so what? Chapter 651. How could she break through like this? Lin Yi was really speechless. Did the aphrodisiac turn Lingshan into an idiot? Did she lose her shyness? Linny reached out and pulled her up. Lingshan pulled her pants up and put her bra back on, but her jacket was already in a mess. She couldn't wear it anymore. Lingshan was a little troubled. If she went out like this and the police saw her, she'd lose all her face. Hey, where are you going? Can you lend me your jacket? Lingshan couldn't bring her tone to Linny at all. It wasn't like her at all. But there was nothing she could do about it. It was already a conditioned reflex in front of Lin. There's a pinhole camera here. Keep it if you don't want the recording to be leaked. Linny threw a small black device to Lingshan. It was a mini recording device with a storage device. It wouldn't be connected to other cameras, so she didn't have to worry about the content being leaked. Lingshan paused and caught the device Linny threw at her. Her face reddened, but she said, "You're not going to stay and watch?" "Huh." Linny smiled faintly. He felt that Lingshan was pushing her a little too far. He quickly walked up to her and lifted her chin. It was a very flirtatious action, and it felt like he was flirting with her. "Do you want me to watch?" Lingshan raised a brow. She wanted to resist, but she realized that she didn't hate the feeling of being flirted with. Was she a masochist? Lingshan smirked. "If you want to watch, Miss Braindead can perform for you anytime, just like just now." Lingshan was saying it out of anger, but when she said it, it felt very satisfying. It was as if she liked doing it. But did she really like it? Lingshan couldn't explain it. It was a very strange feeling, and she felt a little lost. What a vixen, Yushu was right. Linny quickly let go of Lingshan's chin. This woman was a bit of a tiger, but when she got flirtatious, she wasn't an ordinary woman. "This is the headquarters of the kidney trafficking organization. I've done what I need to do. You can handle it yourself, right?" Linny was feeling a little uncomfortable from Lingshan's actions. He'd inhaled some aphrodisiac already. Didn't this girl know that she was doing something dangerous? Didn't she know that even if he fucked her, it would be in vain? "There's no signal here, can you take me out?" Lingshan pulled on Lin Yi's arm like a spoiled little girl. "Really? I really didn't notice that." Lin Yi subconsciously reached for his phone in his pocket, but it was Jiang Wen's phone. It was a very special phone like a walkie-talkie, but Lin Yi had seen a phone like this before. It should be a special phone for internal use, using the internal wireless band. It could also make normal calls using normal numbers, but the SIM card was plugged into the server, and this phone was like a cordless phone terminal. What phone is this? A walkie-talkie? Lingshan looked at the thing in Lin Yi's hand curiously. Lin Yi was about to explain when the special phone in his hand rang. Lin Yi looked at the caller list. He didn't know who it was, but it should be one of Jiang Wen's men. Lin Yi pressed the hang-up button and handed the phone to Lingshan. "Call your people, this is their special phone. You should be able to do an external broadcast." Lingshan nodded and didn't say anything else. She took the phone and dialed a number. As expected, it went through. "Lu Wangli? I'm Lingshan. I'm ordering you to surround the factory on Taixing South Street." Lingshan remembered the address when she came here, but fainted the moment she came in. Lingshan was back to her old self, and this surprised Lin Yi. Lingshan hung up and looked at Lin Yi. "You still don't want to show yourself? Why ask if you already know? Are you retarded?" Lin Yi asked. "Yeah, I'm Miss Retarded. What do you think?" Lingshan looked at Lin Yi pitifully. "Can you give me your jacket? I won't be able to see people like this." "You don't want people to see your stuff, do you?" Lin Yi was speechless. Since when did it become his stuff? But he still took off Jiang Wen's jacket and gave it to Lingshan. "I'm leaving." "Oh right, when you're free you can buy some of this aphrodisiac and try it." Lingshan paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. She looked at Lin Yi with a weird expression. "Try what? You really want to see me perform for you? See if you can break through again." Lin Yi said faintly. "You're able to break through from golden class mid-phase to golden class late phase like this. Your practitioner's arts are a bit weird." Did she misunderstand Lin Yi? Lingshan's face was a little hot. Even if it was a broken pot, Lingshan still had a sense of shame. She didn't turn on Lin Yi because she really had no other choice. Not only did she need Lin Yi's help, but he'd already seen her. What was the point of turning on him? She might as well get some benefits like before. Besides, she didn't have a boyfriend yet. She didn't have much of a burden. But Lin Yi's next words made her forget her shame. Her eyes went wide. She broke through? From golden class mid-phase peak to golden class late phase? Was this for real? How did Lin Yi know? Ling Shan subconsciously channeled her practitioner's arts, and to her shock, she realized that she was indeed at the late phase of the golden class now. It was only the beginning of the late phase, but compared to the golden class mid-phase peak before, it was like night and day. Ling Shan didn't think that she could break through like this. Wasn't this too dramatic? No one would believe her if she told others. No wonder Lin Yi had such a weird expression on his face. He even told her to buy more aphrodisiac. But how did Lin Yi know her strength? She didn't even notice the change in her strength, so how did Lin Yi notice it? Could it be that Lin Yi was stronger than her now? He was golden class late phase peak already. Or even, Ling Shan didn't dare to think further. She couldn't believe her eyes. Lin Yi was only 18, wasn't he? Golden class late phase peak or even mystic class at that age. Was that even possible? Chapter 652. Position in the heart. This kind of master was what every big family wanted to groom with all their resources. A mystic class master at the age of 19. No one knew how far he could go in the future. Having such a master meant that the family would have the right to speak for the next few decades, and it could guarantee that the family wouldn't decline in the next few decades. There were so many benefits to pretending to be Miss Braindead. Ling Shan clenched her fists. She decided to continue pretending in the future. With such a master helping her, wouldn't everything go smoothly? Looking at Lin Yi's back, Ling Shan felt complicated. She didn't know what her relationship with Lin Yi was like. It was so complicated that it gave her a headache. This was the first time in her life that she had such intimate contact with a man. He was also the first man she'd ever seen her private parts. Ling Shan should have been angry, but she didn't feel that way at all. Other than shyness, she felt a sense of excitement as she thought back to what had happened. The feeling at that moment was really wonderful. Should he try it regularly in the future? Ling Shan jumped in fright at this bold idea. She gripped the camera in her hand tightly. She couldn't let this thing get out, or she'd be done for. As for being seen by Lin Yi, Ling Shan didn't feel that much of a burden. She was already a brain-dead girl in front of Lin Yi, and she was already acting coquettishly. All she did was do something shameful in front of Lin Yi. It didn't matter if she embarrassed herself once. It didn't matter if it happened 8 or 10 times. Ling Shan quickly threw the matter to the back of her head and started thinking about the mastermind behind the kidney trafficking company. From her point of view, it should be easy for Lin Yi to catch the mastermind, but Lin Yi didn't do it. Lin Yi came here just to save her. Ling Shan knew Lin Yi too well. He was the type of person who wouldn't care about anything that had nothing to do with him. He wouldn't care about anything that had nothing to do with him, but Ling Shan was glad that he would care about her. At the very least, Miss Braindead's act wasn't for nothing. She still had a place in Lin Yi's heart. He did not ignore her. Ling Shan shook her head at the thought. She scolded herself inwardly. Ling Shan, have you been pretending to be Miss Braindead for too long? She was so smug just because she had a place in his heart? Why does she look like a concubine in the old days? No, I'm asking him to help me, so I must have a good relationship with him. Ling Shan thought about it and started comforting herself. Pin Liang didn't think that today would be his lucky day. Not only was the poisoning successful, but he also got a call from his father not long after, saying that he had found a compatible kidney, and it was actually Lin Yi's kidney. Pin Liang was still in a state of excitement when he entered the surgery room to get anesthetized. He'd thought that he'd have to wait for Naipeo's return before he could get his revenge on Lin Yi. He didn't think that Lin Yi would get his comeuppance so soon. For safety's sake, Pin Liang's blood was drawn and matched with Lin Yi's blood sample. After everything was normal, Pin Liang was pushed into the surgery room. Pin Liang looked at the stretcher not far away from him. There was another stretcher with a person lying on it, but he was wearing a patient's gown and a disposable surgical cap. He couldn't tell who it was under the light, but he was sure that it was Lin Yi. Mr. Zhong, please don't enter the surgery room. It's an important place and even I can't go in casually. What if you bring in bacteria and infect Lin Yi? It's not a big deal, but it'll be bad if your son gets infected. The tattooed man stopped Fabai from entering the surgery room. All right, I'll wait here then. Fabai nodded. I really have to thank Masterin and you this time. Pinliang was able to find a suitable kidney source so quickly. It's just a coincidence. The tattooed man waved his hand and said. Pinliang was injected with anesthetics, and Lin Yi or Jiangwen was also injected with anesthetics. As for why Jiangwen was unconscious, Dr. Wang didn't want to know at all. What he wanted to do was to transplant this person's kidney to Pinliang. Dr. Wang had been dealing with kidneys every day since he joined Jiangwen's organization, so he was very familiar with kidney transplant surgery. He could even do it with his eyes closed. Swoosh, the sharp scalpel flashed, and Jiangwen's stomach was cut open. Dr. Wang skillfully cut out his kidney. This is a good kidney. Dr. Wang looked at Jiangwen's kidney and said, if we sell this kidney, it should be able to fetch a good price. Although there was a partition between the surgery room and the preparation room, the sound could still be heard. Dr. Wang was obviously talking to the tattooed man. But Master Wen specifically told us to transplant the kidney to Pinliang for free. No matter how good the kidney is, we can't sell it. The tattooed man laughed. He said that to sell Zhong Fabai a favor, so that Fabai would remember his kindness. Tattooed bro, don't worry. I, Zhong Fabai, am not someone who doesn't know what's good for him. After this, I will definitely pay Masterin a visit to thank him. How could Fabai not understand the tattooed man's meaning? However, if his son's kidney transplant was successful, then he wouldn't have a problem spending hundreds of thousands. There's no need for that. Dr. Wang, you have to perform this surgery well. The tattooed man laughed and ordered Dr. Wang. Don't worry. Dr. Wang was the core of this organization, but he didn't have the chance to talk to Jiangwen directly. Most of the time, it was the tattooed man who conveyed Jiangwen's message to him, so he only saw Jiangwen's face a few times. He didn't realize that the Lin Yi lying on the operating table was actually his boss Jiangwen. The surgery was a success. Dr. Wang quickly stitched up Pinliang's wound and said to the tattooed man, Tattooed bro, the surgery was a success. Master Zhong is fine. But what should we do with this kidney? Dr. Wang was naturally referring to Lin Yi. Chapter 653. Directly the tattooed guy dialed Jiangwen's number with his phone, but the call was hung up after a few rings. The tattooed guy was startled. Did something happen on Jiangwen's side? He wanted to call again, but he was afraid that Jiangwen would scold him, so he said to Dr. Wang, let's do it like before. Get someone to throw him in front of the hospital. One of Lin Yi's kidneys had been removed. If he didn't stay in the hospital for some time, he would most likely die. The tattooed guy knew that Jiangwen wanted to teach Lin Yi a lesson, but he couldn't kill Lin Yi here. If he really wanted to kill Lin Yi, he wouldn't need to remove one of his kidneys. It was even possible to remove both of them. So the tattooed guy hesitated for a while and decided to use the old method, throwing Lin Yi in front of the hospital. Naturally, there would be someone who would go and save Lin Yi. Zhong Fabai thanked him profusely and brought Pinliang back to rest. The tattooed guy naturally had to drive the father and son back. This was because he was afraid that the father and son would know the location of the headquarters, so he purposely drove a commercial car with the back compartment completely sealed. As for the poor Jiangwen, Dr. Wang waved his hand arrogantly, and a few strong men came in and dragged him out of the surgery room like a dead body. They threw him into an old van without a license plate and drove towards the hospital. When they passed by the Songshan First Hospital, Jiangwen was thrown in front of the hospital like a dead dog. Then the van drove away. After sending the father and son to the hospital, the tattooed guy drove back to the headquarters of the kidney trafficking organization. However, he didn't expect that he would get a call from the man with the aquiline nose not long after he returned to the headquarters. Tattooed bro, bad news. The girl in the dungeon ran away. The man with the aquiline nose was sweating profusely. He had poured the aphrodisiac into the dungeon and wanted to check on Lingshan's situation through the surveillance footage. However, he suddenly remembered that this girl was the tattooed guy's pleasure. If he saw some bad scenes beforehand, would the tattooed guy hate him? Thinking of this, the aquiline-nosed man did not dare to watch the video. But after thinking about it, he felt that it wasn't safe. He didn't know if the aphrodisiac worked, so he went to the surveillance room and turned on the surveillance video. However, he was surprised to find that the signal was interrupted. This shocked the hook-nosed man. He hurriedly ran to the dungeon to check on the situation, but the situation in the dungeon gave him a shock. The iron door of the dungeon had been forcefully broken, and Lingshan, who was inside, was nowhere to be found. The aquiline-nosed man immediately turned pale with fright. He quickly called the tattooed man to inform him of the situation. When the tattooed man returned to the headquarters, he received the call. Ran away? Why did he run away? Where did he go? The tattooed man was shocked when he heard this. He quickly asked. That was Lingshan from the criminal police. This wasn't something to be messed with. If she really escaped, wouldn't the entire HQ be destroyed as well? I don't know either. The surveillance video in the dungeon has been destroyed. The hook-nosed man said carefully. Didn't I tell you to drug her? How did she escape? The tattooed man was furious. Could it be that the hook-nosed man had forgotten about it? Yes, I did. I followed your instructions and drugged her. I was waiting for you to come to her, but who knew that she could escape? The hook-nosed man said bitterly. What? You drugged her with an aphrodisiac? Who told you to drug her? The tattooed man was furious when he heard this. Drugging Lingshan with an aphrodisiac? Didn't he have nothing better to do? It's you. The hook-nosed man didn't understand what he had done wrong. Didn't you tell me to drug her? I did tell you to drug her, but not an aphrodisiac. The tattooed man was so angry that he almost rolled his eyes. Wasn't this guy too good at making his own decisions and changing his own meaning? Ah, you said you wanted to enjoy this girl. I thought you wanted me to drug her. The hook-nosed man said in a wrong tone. Fuck, we're in trouble now. The tattooed man understood why the hook-nosed man had misunderstood him. He couldn't blame the hook-nosed man for this. He didn't make himself clear, which led to this misunderstanding. Lingshan was a golden class master. If she wasn't drugged, she would definitely wake up. It wasn't surprising that she escaped. The question was, where did she go? Was she near the HQ, or had she already left the HQ? Tattooed bro, did I do something wrong? The hook-nosed man could tell that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Logically speaking, it was just a kidney that they had captured. There was no need for them to be so nervous. However, the tattooed man's reaction was clearly different. Close the HQ's door immediately and search for that girl. The tattooed man ordered the hook-nosed man. He was afraid that it would be too late if Lingshan left the HQ and could contact the outside world. Everything would be over. After giving the order, the tattooed man quickly dialed Jiang Wen's number. When Linny left, he first went to the room where he was captured and put on his clothes. He then threw Jiang Wen's clothes and phone in the room. So when the tattooed man dialed Jiang Wen's number, no one answered until the phone automatically hung up. The tattooed man was panicking, but he had no other choice. He could only call Jiang Wen's number again and again. No matter what, he had to inform Jiang Wen as soon as possible so that he could be prepared. Otherwise, if Lingshan really escaped, none of them would be able to escape. Suddenly, the sound of police sirens came from outside the window. The tattooed man was shocked. He raised his head and saw that the HQ was surrounded by dozens of police cars. There were quite a few SWAT cars among them. Red and blue police lights intertwined. It was a spectacular scene. The tattooed man smiled bitterly. It was over, it was really over. His remedy was obviously too late. Lingshan had already escaped and gathered people to surround his HQ. At this moment, the tattooed man didn't even think about resisting or escaping. Under the encirclement of so many police forces, unless he knew stealth or Ultraman, there was no way he could escape. Chapter 654. Accepting the responsibility from the first day the tattooed man took this step, joined the In family, and helped the Fire Wolf gang to sell their kidneys, he already knew that this day would come sooner or later. However, the In family treated him well. His younger brothers and sisters all went to college, and the original thatched cottage at home had now been built into a villa. His parents' savings had already reached tens of millions, and all this money was sent back by the tattooed man. His family had already become one of the richest families in the village, and even the whole town. His family knew that he was working outside, but they didn't know what he was doing. The tattooed guy didn't spend much money here. He basically didn't need any money, so all his bonuses were given to his family. The tattooed man felt that his life was worth it. His brother, sister, and parents could live a good life, and he had nothing else to ask for. He was a person who had been in prison, and he didn't have a promising future. If it weren't for the family's appreciation of him, he might be living on the streets now. So the tattooed guy only hoped that Jiang Wen, the young master of Hausen, could escape safely. He just needed to take care of his family. As for the crime of the kidney trafficking organization, he was prepared to take responsibility for it. It could be said that other than Dr. Wang, no one knew that the tattooed guy had a boss behind him. Of course, Zihua and Master Bing knew about it too, but they were all gangsters. No one would break the rules and report it to the police. The tattooed guy quickly walked to the surgery room before the police arrived. He saw Dr. Wang's expressionless face. Maybe Dr. Wang had the same thought. He knew that this day would come. Tattooed bro, has this day arrived? Dr. Wang's expression was dull, but his tone was calm. Yes, the tattooed guy nodded. If we get arrested, what will we be charged with? Dr. Wang asked. Even if we don't die, we'll be sentenced to life imprisonment, right? The tattooed guy smiled. You came here to kill me, right? Dr. Wang raised his head and looked at the tattooed guy. The tattooed guy nodded honestly. I'm afraid that you won't be able to handle it and hand over Master One. Haha, I can handle it, but I don't want to. I don't want my son to know that his father is a criminal, an unscrupulous doctor who cuts people's kidneys for profit. Dr. Wang said faintly, my son's dream is to be a doctor. He was proud of his father. I don't want him to be disappointed. After I die, can you tell the police that I was forced to die? Is that okay? This is my last request. Of course. The tattooed guy nodded. If you don't fear the evil forces and kill yourself, your son will be proud of you. Dr. Wang smiled slightly. He stood up and took out a reagent from the cabinet. This was what he used to kill people, but he always kept one for himself. Dr. Wang nimbly drew the reagent into the syringe and injected it into his son's body without hesitation. All these years, the money he had left for his son was enough for him to study abroad. He hoped that his son could walk the right path and become a good doctor. This was Dr. Wang's last thought. Then he collapsed on the chair. It's my turn now. The tattooed guy turned around and went downstairs. Outside the HQ, the police were already shouting with their megaphone. The tattooed guy raised his hands as he walked out of the HQ. He looked at the wall of police officers in front of him, and Ling Shan was standing at the very front. But why did Ling Shan's coat look so familiar? However, the tattooed man didn't have time to think about it. He was handcuffed by the police and dragged into the police car. There were not many people in the headquarters. Including the nurses and a few burly men, there were only about 20 people. These dozens of police cars seemed to be a little too much. However, this was a big case that had been registered in the province. It was normal to pay more attention to it. Bring them all back to the station and interrogate them separately. Ling Shan ordered with a wave of her hand. The Ling Shan right now was a completely different person from the Ling Shan who acted like a spoiled child in front of Lin Yi. She was back to her old self. Report: there are no victims found at the scene. The prison's door was forcefully broken. There's no one inside. The man who was in charge of cleaning up the scene came out and reported to Ling Shan. The only victim should be one of the members of the criminal group, the doctor who performed the surgery. All right. Fourth team, stay here and guard the place. The rest of you retreat. Ling Shan naturally knew that there were no victims. She was the only victim in the prison. Now that she came out, there was no one inside. Sitting in the police car, listening to the praises and words of admiration from her men, Ling Shan felt like she was in a dream. The case was solved just like that? Wasn't it too fast? Yesterday she was still troubled by the case, but today she got a complete victory. What kind of person are you? Ling Shan suddenly couldn't understand Lin Yi anymore. She just asked for his help yesterday and today the case was solved. Although it was a coincidence, Lin Yi's strength was undeniable. Unknowingly, Ling Shan's attitude towards Lin Yi had changed. Before she thought that Lin Yi was just lucky, but now it seemed like that wasn't the case. Her thoughts before were really laughable. She wanted to compete with Lin Yi? Thinking back to the scene where Lin Yi kicked down the prison door with one foot, Ling Shan couldn't help but sigh. Although she was a late-phase golden class now, and that door shouldn't be a problem for her anymore, it wasn't something that could be kicked down with just one or two kicks. Before, Ling Shan wasn't used to acting like a spoiled brat in front of Lin Yi, but now she seemed to have gotten used to it. At least she wasn't angry anymore. Instead, she felt an indescribable satisfaction. Was there really something wrong with her? Why did it seem like she was a masochist? Captain Song, I'm afraid you're going to be promoted this time, right? Lu Wangli and Ling Shan were quite familiar with each other. When Ling Shan first came to the police station, she was the captain of first team. She was also Lu Wangli's direct superior. I just got promoted, why would I get promoted again? Although Ling Shan said that, she was secretly looking forward to it. Even if she didn't get promoted, she would at least get promoted, right? Chapter 655. Yao Yao fainted from anger? Let's wait for the interrogation results to come out first. We don't know if these people are all the criminals. Are there any that escaped? Ling Shan felt that this case was solved too quickly, and the criminals didn't even put up a fight before surrendering. Ling Shan felt that it was a little strange. Although they didn't have any hostages, and it was impossible for them to escape from the police, Ling Shan still felt that there was more to it than meets the eye. Especially the main surgeon. Why did he commit suicide? Did he have no choice or did he commit suicide? She had to investigate all of these, and it was too early to say that the case was solved. Meng Yao didn't have a big appetite. Although she was eating as much as she could, 6 dishes and 1 soup wasn't something she could finish alone. She ate a few mouthfuls of each dish and was almost full. Meng Yao could only comfort herself. Although she didn't eat much, she ate every dish. This way the nutrition was balanced, and her body was healthy. Who cared if Tang Yun thought that she was wasteful? As long as she was happy. With that thought, Meng Yao didn't force herself to eat anymore. After a few mouthfuls, she put down her chopsticks. Shoo, I'm full. Let's go back to class. Oh, but Yao Yao sis, you haven't finished yet? Yushu pointed at the food on the table. Nope, I can't eat anymore. You don't want me to become like you last time, do you? Meng Yao really couldn't eat anymore. Oh, never mind then. Yao Yao sis, you always want to assassinate me, but I don't want to assassinate you, Yushu said. Meng Yao was speechless. When did I assassinate you? The two walked out of the cafeteria hand in hand. When they passed by Tang Yun's table, the miss raised her head proudly. She didn't even look at Tang Yun. Xinwen curled her lips. What are you so proud of? You can't finish it, right? What a waste of food. Meng Yao was angry, but she didn't care. This kind of thing wouldn't be solved in a short period of time. There were more people in the cafeteria now, and Meng Yao didn't want people to laugh at her. Back in the classroom, Meng Yao and Yushu took out their MP4s and started watching cartoons. They'd watch cartoons whenever they had free time in the afternoon. Yao Yao, has Zhong Pingliang been bothering you these past few days? Yushu, on the other hand, wasn't used to it. Pinliang used to chase after Meng Yao every day, and Yushu was always able to get some benefits from him. What, you want him to come? Meng Yao felt that her life was much more peaceful without Pinliang bothering her. Oh, he's not bothering you anymore, so you don't need a shield anymore? Is Shield Bro going to be fired? Yushu said, a little reluctant. Yushu's words startled Meng Yao. She hadn't thought of this problem before, and she hadn't thought about it at all. That was right. He'd asked Lin Yi to come in the first place to find a shield and get rid of Pingliang's harassment. Now that he had achieved his goal, Zhong Pingliang had shed all pretense of cordiality with him. After what had happened before, there was no way he would pursue him anymore. So Lin Yi's work is really over? The miss felt a little sour in her heart. She hadn't spent a long time with Lin Yi, but it wasn't short either. She seemed to have gotten used to his existence. Meng Yao was a little annoyed that Yushu suddenly brought this up. If Yushu didn't say it, she could pretend that nothing had happened. She wouldn't have deliberately thought about it, and Lin Yi would still be the old Lin Yi, her follower. But now that Yushu said it, did she have to fire Lin Yi? He was so despicable, flirting around. He deserved to be fired. But he seemed quite pitiful, didn't he? An orphan came to work in a foreign city, and if she fired him, what would he do? And out of sympathy, she couldn't fire him for now. She couldn't burn the bridge after she'd outlived her usefulness, could she? That wasn't what a good kid should do. Meng Yao found a suitable excuse for herself. Besides, it seemed like she was still in danger. Xu Pinliang can already do such crazy things. It's hard to say that he won't be even crazier in the future. We're still in a dangerous situation, and we need someone to protect us. Meng Yao said, from the looks of it, Lin Yi is still qualified, so let's use him for now. Besides, he's quite pitiful. He's an orphan. Otherwise he wouldn't be homeless. Oh, he can stay at Tang Yun's house. Yushu interrupted. Meng Yao raged and glared at Yushu. Was this girl doing it on purpose? Oh sis, why are you glaring at me? Did I say something wrong? Oh, I know, if you want to pursue Shield Bro, you can't let him stay at Tang Yun's house. Yushu said with a smile. I finally found out Yao Yao's secret. I'm the spy Shu 007. Meng Yao was furious. Who wants to pursue Lin Yi? I'm the miss, how can I pursue him? He should be the one pursuing me. I might not even say yes. But thinking about how Lin Yi ignored her, Meng Yao's blood rushed to her head, and she didn't know why, but she felt dizzy and laid on the table. Sis? Yushu saw that Meng Yao was ignoring her, so she called her. But Meng Yao didn't reply, and Yushu was a little scared. I'll stop, okay? I'm just joking, don't ignore me, okay? Meng Yao still didn't move. Yao sis, what are you doing? Don't ignore me, I'm your best friend. Yushu thought that Meng Yao was really angry, so she went to pull her arm coquettishly. But Meng Yao didn't move at all. And even when Yushu pulled her, she moved a little out of habit. This time, Yushu really felt that something was wrong. Oh sis, don't scare me, okay? You're not going to faint from anger, are you? I'm just saying that you're going after Shield Bro. Why are you going to faint? Meng Yao still didn't move. Yushu didn't care about joking anymore. She was really panicking, and she didn't know where she got the strength from, but she carried Meng Yao on her back, stumbling out of the classroom, and ran towards the school sick bay. The potential of a human body was limitless, and Yushu didn't have that much strength, but at this moment, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to make sure that nothing happened to Yao sis. So she didn't even think about whether she could carry Meng Yao or not, and just ran out with Meng Yao on her back. Chapter 656. She doesn't love Shield Bro anymore. School doctor. Yao has fainted, please take a look at her. Yushu's tone had changed as well. It wasn't her usual cute tone anymore, but it sounded a little hoarse now. Yushu carried Meng Yao into the sick bay, and was just about to place her on the bed when she realized that there were already a few students lying on the bed. There were also a lot of teachers and students in the sick bay as well, and it seemed like something had happened. Another one? The school doctor frowned when he saw Yushu carrying Meng Yao in, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Why are there so many people? Why isn't the ambulance here yet? The school doctor didn't know what to do with the students fainting one after another. He couldn't tell what caused the fainting at all, and all the students had the same symptoms. Their faces were pale, and their breathing was rapid. Dr. Li, how's the situation? The dean Wang Jifeng rushed over as soon as he heard the news. He frowned when he saw the sick bay full of teachers and students. Teachers and students who are not involved, please leave. Don't squeeze in here, the air is bad. Wang Jifeng's words were very effective. Be it the teachers or the students, they all left the sick bay obediently. But since the people inside were their classmates or good friends, the teachers and students didn't want to go too far. They lingered in the corridors, not willing to leave. But there was one person who didn't leave. Yushu was still hugging Meng Yao tightly, sitting at the corner of the bed. Wang Jifeng knew her and naturally he wouldn't chase her away. But when he saw Meng Yao in her arms, he was shocked. Wasn't this the chairman's daughter? She fainted as well? Wang Jifeng was sweating profusely. He didn't have time to ask and quickly called the principal, Ding Binggong, to report the situation. Principal Ding, where are you? More than 10 students from the school are unconscious, including Chairman Chu's daughter, Ming. Jifeng couldn't handle the situation, so he called Binggong. Ding Binggong went to the Education Bureau for a meeting, so he didn't rush back to school for lunch at noon. Instead, he went out to eat with the other principals. When he received Wang Jifeng's call, he turned pale with fright. He didn't bother to explain to the other principals. He just said, "Something happened at school." Then he hurriedly pulled the driver out of the restaurant and got in the car. Then he asked Old Wang, "What did you say? More than 10 students fainted? And Meng Yao? What is going on?" "I've just arrived, so I'm not too sure." "Dr. Li, what kind of illness do these students have? Why did so many students faint all of a sudden?" Wang Jifeng finally had the time to ask the anxious Dr. Li, "Dean Wang, I'm not sure. I've never seen such symptoms before. I'm not sure if it's an acute infection. I've already called the emergency center." "The ambulance should be here soon," Dr. Li said carefully. When Dr. Li spoke, Wang Jifeng's phone was also on, so Ding Binggong on the other side heard everything clearly. His head exploded. If something happened to the school, not only would it affect the school's reputation, even the corporation would be implicated. "Old Wang, I'll rush back immediately. You must stay calm. Don't let anything happen to the students," Ding Binggong ordered anxiously. "I understand. I'll try my best to control the situation." Wang Jifeng nodded with a heavy expression. But he also knew that the current situation wasn't something he could control. While he was making the call, there were more than one unconscious students being sent in by the teachers. This gave Jifeng a headache. At the same time, he quickly thought of the reason why the students were like this. If he couldn't find the reason, then there would be more students like this. By that time it would be too late. However, even Dr. Li didn't know the specific situation. How could a non-medical graduate like him know the specific situation? So, while Wang Jifeng waited for Ding Binggong, he could only pray for the ambulance to arrive faster so that the students could go to a proper hospital for treatment as soon as possible. Yushu was a little dumbfounded. She originally thought that Meng Yao fainted because of her anger, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. There seemed to be a lot of people with the same symptoms as Yao Yao sis. What happened to these people? But even so, Yushu was even more worried. If it was just anger, it would be easy to deal with it. But now it wasn't anger but something else. Yushu was panicking. She subconsciously thought of Lin Yi. When she was about to die last time, it was also Lin Yi who saved her. So she planned to find Lin Yi to save Meng Yao. Yushu quickly took out her phone and called Lin Yi. But after waiting for a long time, the phone automatically hung up. Lin Yi didn't pick up. Yushu called again and it was the same. No one picked up. "Damn shield bro, where did you go? If anything happens to Yao sis, I'll never like you again. I won't forgive you for the rest of my life," Yushu said to herself angrily. While waiting for the ambulance, a few more students were sent to the school's sick bay. Up until now, there were a total of 28 students waiting for the ambulance to send them to the hospital. During this time, Dr. Li made a few more calls, urging the emergency center to send more ambulances. At the same time, he also asked them to send more ambulances. At least 7 to 8 ambulances were needed to transport these students. However, in the following time, until the first class in the afternoon, no more students were sent to the school's sick bay. It seemed that this round of fainting had stopped temporarily. This made Jifeng and Dr. Li let out a sigh of relief. Ding Binggong arrived at the school almost at the same time as the ambulance. The students were carried into the ambulance one by one. Naturally, Yushu didn't want to leave Meng Yao alone. She accompanied Meng Yao to the ambulance. Ding Binggong and Jifeng knew Yushu, so naturally they didn't stop her. They got into the ambulance with Meng Yao. Dr. Li and the other ambulance stayed at the school. If there were any fainted students, they would be sent to the hospital immediately. Chapter 657. Cause of coma? Shu, what's wrong with Yao Yao? Can you tell us what happened? Ding Binggong wanted to know the truth of the matter, but he didn't get any useful information from Jifeng and Dr. Li, so he turned his attention to Yushu. Yushu was with Ming Yao, so she should know more about the process of Ming Yao fainting. But Yushu's words were no different from what the other students had said. All of them fainted not long after they returned to the classroom after lunch. At first, Dr. Li had suspected that the students fainted because of food poisoning, since the students only started fainting after lunch. But this theory didn't hold up to scrutiny, since the fainted students were only a small percentage of the students who ate in the cafeteria. There were only 28 of them. With that, the possibility of food poisoning was much lower. Why else would the other students be fine? It wasn't very likely that it was caused by eating a certain type of food. After all, there wasn't a single dish that only 28 students ate, was there? As a result, they had to go to the hospital to determine the cause of the coma. Along the way, the ambulances ran through several red lights. It was rare to see such a fleet of ambulances, but the cars on the road also took the initiative to make way for them. It was obvious that something big had happened for so many ambulances to be dispatched at once. Binggong gathered his thoughts and dialed up Pengzhan's number. He had to inform the chairman of the school about something this serious, not to mention that Meng Yao was one of the fainted students. It was all the more reason for him to inform Pengzhan. Pengzhan was in the middle of a meeting when his phone rang. He didn't want to pick it up at first, but Binggong's name appeared on the screen. He didn't really want to pick it up, but Binggong didn't usually call him unless he came to the company to report on his work every week. If it wasn't business, then it had to be something that happened to Meng Yao, Yushu, or Lin Yi. That was why he would call him personally. At that thought, Pengzhan gestured for everyone to wait before picking up the phone. Headmaster Ding, what's up? I'm in the middle of a meeting. Pengzhan's words were very clear. If Binggong didn't have anything important to attend to, they could fight later. Chairman Chu, something has happened to the school. Binggong said solemnly. 28 students fainted for unknown reasons during lunch break, and Meng Yao was one of them. What? Pengzhan stood up subconsciously in shock. The news about Ding Binggong was already shocking enough. More than 20 students fainted at the same time. Such a big incident had never happened since the school was founded. If it wasn't handled well, the reputation of the school and even the reputation of the corporation would be severely affected. What worried Pengzhan the most was his daughter Meng Yao's safety. Meng Yao was a part of his life, and now that Meng Yao had fainted, how could he have the mood to continue the meeting? He waved his hand, indicating that the meeting could be adjourned. The meeting is adjourned. Li Fu, come with me for a moment. Yes, Mr. Chu. Li Fu nodded and followed Pengzhan into the meeting room. As Pengzhan's confidant, he could naturally tell that something was wrong with Pengzhan's emotions. Something must have happened to him. In Pengzhan Industries, Chu Pengzhan's words carried enormous weight, and no one dared to say anything against him. Guangbua and Gubong's resignation was still fresh in their minds, so how could the new shareholders not be treading on thin ice? Seeing that Pengzhan had something to attend to, they didn't dare ask any questions. They only left the meeting room and returned to their offices after Pengzhan had left. Pengzhan, on the other hand, frowned as he held the phone in his hand. Is Yao Yao all right? Is she in danger? I'm not sure yet, Mr. Chu. We're about to reach the hospital. It's only a few minutes' drive away. Binggong said. All right, which hospital? I'll be there right away. Pengzhan was panicking, but there was nothing he could do. At the Second People's Hospital. Binggong said. The best hospitals in the city were the First People's Hospital and the Second People's Hospital. However, the First People's Hospital had been established for a long time, so many people had higher recognition of it than the Second People's Hospital. However, the Second People's Hospital was also a branch of the First People's Hospital. After Guan Shuamin's son's Mingyang Medical Group invested in it, it was established as the Second People's Hospital. The doctors here were also from the First People's Hospital, and the medical facilities were also the latest. Many young people began to recognize the Second People's Hospital. The First People's Hospital couldn't send 7 or 8 ambulances at once, so the Second People's Hospital went to the school to pick up the unconscious students. All right, I understand. Pengzhan hung up the phone and said to Faubert, Go to the second people's hospital. Yao Yao fainted, and there are a total of 28 students who fainted for unknown reasons. We'll be there right away. All right, Mr. Chu. Faubert heard that Meng Yao fainted as well. He quickly started the car and rushed to the second people's hospital. 5 minutes later, the ambulances stopped at the entrance of the second people's hospital. There were already medical staff waiting at the entrance, and they pushed the unconscious students to the emergency room one by one. Yushu sent Meng Yao to the emergency room. It wasn't until the doctor told her that the patient's family could only wait outside that Yushu let go of Meng Yao's hand reluctantly. Yao Yao sis, you have to hold on. Binggong, Jifeng, and Yushu waited at the entrance of the emergency room, anxiously waiting for the results. Principal Ding Dean Wang Shu. Peng Zhan rushed to the hospital quickly and saw the 3 people outside the emergency room. He strode over, and Faubert accompanied Peng Zhan anxiously at the side. Mr. Chu. Uncle Chu. Binggong, Jifeng, and Yushu called out at the same time. Binggong smiled bitterly and said to Peng Zhan, "They're all in the emergency room. We don't know the results yet." Peng Zhan nodded, and his face was also anxious. How's the school? We have to be stable. Don't let the students panic. Chapter 658. A heated argument. We still have to inform them of this. Peng Zhan sighed. Don't push the responsibility away. If it's really the school's fault, then we have to give the parents an explanation. Even if it's not the school's fault, we have to do our best to save the students. The medical fees will be covered by the company. All right, Dean Wang, I'll leave this to you to communicate with the parents. Make sure not to escalate the conflict and maintain the school's reputation as much as possible. Binggong instructed Jifeng. All right, Headmaster Ding, I'll do that right away. Jifeng nodded and started calling the school staff to compile the files of the fainted students. Soon, the parents of the students who got the news rushed to the hospital. It was a mess at the entrance of the emergency room. Some parents were still able to ask about their children's situation normally, but some parents directly shouted, "What's wrong with my child? He was fine when he was sent to your school. Why did he faint? What did you do? If anything happens to my child, I'll tear down your school. Who's the headmaster? How is your school run? Why did my child faint when he was there?" Everyone stop arguing. This is a hospital, and your children are in the emergency room. What if you interrupt the doctors? Binggong and Jifeng looked at the parents helplessly. You even know that our children are in the emergency room? What kind of headmaster are you? A student fainted in the school. What are you guys thinking? What the hell are you guys doing? A middle-aged woman pointed at Binggong and scolded. That's right. Have our students been treated unfairly? Did they faint because of corporal punishment? We want to know the truth. Another parent shouted. The truth. The truth. The truth. We want the truth. The other parents also shouted. Since they were going to make a scene, they were going to make a scene together. For the sake of their children, these parents were not afraid to fight to the death with the school. Peng Zhan frowned. The situation was getting heated up, so he walked over himself and gestured for the parents to calm down. Everyone quiet. I'm the chairman of Peng Zhan Industries. Peng Zhan. You're the chairman? You want us to calm down? Can you calm down? It's not your child inside. Of course you're not worried. The middle-aged woman interrupted Peng Zhan before he could finish. That's right. You're the chairman of the board. How precious are you? Your children are all princesses and young masters. Our children can't do it. They can't even faint in school. Another parent also teased. Although I'm the chairman of Peng Zhan Industries and the director of the school, I feel the same as all of you. I'm also worried and praying for the kids inside. Peng Zhan said, as parents, what we should be doing now is waiting for the results from the doctor, not making a scene. It's not good for the children at all. It's easy for you to say that. So it's not your child? Aren't you worried? The middle-aged woman was obviously a prick. Her words were the sharpest. You're still worried? Are you worried that your school's reputation will be tarnished? Yeah, you're worried about the school's reputation, right? The other parents also said. Everyone, you've misunderstood. I've already said that I'm the same as all of you. I'm standing here as a parent. Pengzhan shook his head and said, because my daughter, Chu Mengyao, is also one of the unconscious students. I'm also worried about my daughter. As for the corporal punishment you're talking about, it's all nonsense. Do you think that Principal Bingong can still stand here and talk to you after punishing my daughter? He would have been expelled by me a long time ago. Pengzhan's words stunned all the parents. They never would have thought that Pengzhan's daughter was also one of the unconscious students. Then all their previous guesses were really wrong. Unless the teachers and the principal had the guts to not continue working in the school, they wouldn't punish the director's daughter. The middle-aged woman who was the loudest just now also stopped moving. She was a little ashamed. It seemed like she had wronged Pengzhan. The chairman's daughter was also unconscious. What right did she have to criticize Pengzhan? They were just parents who were worried about their children. So the only thing we can do now is to wait for the doctor's results. If it's really the school's responsibility, then the school will definitely take responsibility. Even if it's not the school's responsibility, the school will try its best to treat the children, and the medical fees will be covered by the school. Pengzhan continued. Hearing Pengzhan's words, the parents didn't say anything. Pengzhan's words were reasonable, and they couldn't refute him. Why not wait for the doctor's results first? Time passed, and Pengzhan and the parents were anxiously waiting for the doctor's results. The emergency room lights were still on, meaning that the rescue was still ongoing. After all, there were more than 20 students, and it wasn't a problem that could be solved in a short amount of time. Suddenly, there was a flurry of footsteps and noise. A few people who looked like reporters rushed over with cameras and microphones. Some of them were bribed by Zihua, and some of them were friends of the bribed people. They were here because they had received a piece of news that 28 unconscious students were admitted to the hospital. This was big news, and even those who weren't bribed were more than happy to be a part of it. Hello, I'm Direwolf, a reporter from XX Daily. I heard that there was a terrible collective coma incident in Songshan's first school. May I ask if you are the parents of the students involved? This guy was one of the reporters bribed by Zihua, and he was also the leader of this interview. He used to be in the underworld, but he was beaten up by a special forces soldier when he went out to show off. He couldn't stay in the underworld anymore. And so he used his connections to become an interviewer for a street tabloid. One had to admit that this direwolf was quite mean. The moment he came up, he sharpened the conflict and made it into a terrible collective coma. Chapter 659. Notification of critical condition. Could it be that someone leaked the news? Or was there someone in the school who hated him and wanted to make a big deal out of this? Or was there something else going on? But it didn't matter who called these people over. Pengzhan had to think of a way to deal with them, otherwise they'd go back and write whatever they wanted, and it'd affect the school's reputation severely. I'm the chairman of Pengzhan Industries. May I ask, where did you get this news? Pengzhan had to come out and face the reporters. Oh, Chairman Chu is here? That's great, let's interview you directly. Direwolf rolled his eyes and pointed the spearhead at Pengzhan. As long as Pengzhan said something wrong, he could use it as a pretext. We heard that a school under your company had such a terrible incident. As the chairman of the company, what do you think about this? Is it a lapse in management? Or someone is neglecting their duties? Or are some teachers involved in crimes? Direwolf was famous for his sharp tongue. The few questions he asked were all very sharp and harsh. This reporter friend, I don't know how you got the news of this so-called evil group incident. Pengzhan smiled faintly. But the doctor hasn't given an answer yet. Even the parents and I don't know the reason why the students are in a coma. How did you know? It doesn't matter how we know. Naturally, someone provided us with clues. Direwolf said. Even if you knew the reason, you wouldn't tell us, would you? The parents are the ones in the dark. You are the leaders of the school. Why would you care about the lives of other people's children? That's not right. Chairman Chu's daughter is also one of the students in a coma. How can you say that he doesn't care? The middle-aged woman didn't have any ulterior motives. She was telling the truth. Although she was a troublemaker, she wasn't a bad person. Direwolf froze. He didn't expect Pengzhan's daughter to be one of the victims. This contradicted his words. Pengzhan wasn't indifferent. In fact, he was quite concerned. However, Direwolf reacted quickly. Look, even Chairman Chu's daughter is in trouble in his own school. You can imagine how chaotic the school's management system is. Do you still dare to send your own children here? The middle-aged woman was slightly stunned after hearing that. But after thinking about it carefully, it did make sense. Even the daughter of the school's chairman had become like this. Wouldn't it be more dangerous for her, a commoner's child? After listening to Direwolf's words, the parents also had some doubts. Yes, the school can't even guarantee the safety of their chairman's daughter. How can they guarantee the safety of other students? Calm down, everyone. Pengzhan waved his hand. Didn't I tell you before? I don't know the real reason why the students are in a coma, and neither does the school doctor. We'll have to wait for the results from the secondary hospital's doctor. If it's really the school's fault, then the school won't push the blame away. It's still too early to talk about this. Pengzhan's words temporarily calmed the parents down. Yes, their children were still in the emergency room. It was still too early to get angry before the cause was clear. Direwolf didn't expect Pengzhan to solve the problem this way. He frowned. But he had taken the 20,000 yuan from Zihua. He was prepared to ruin Pengzhan's school. He couldn't just give up like this. He couldn't just go back and write whatever he wanted. If he did, Pengzhan would definitely sue them for defamation. If he made these parents angry, then it wouldn't be defamation anymore. What he wrote represented the wishes of these parents. Pengzhan could only vent his anger on these parents. But in the current situation, Direwolf couldn't say much. However, he wasn't stupid. He thought of a solution after thinking for a while. Since he couldn't incite these parents now, he might as well wait for the results of the hospital's examination to come out. He could then make an issue out of the results. Of course, he didn't know that the mastermind behind this fainting incident was Zihua. He also didn't know that Zihua was the one who sent people to poison the school. He only thought that Zihua had some conflict with Pengzhan and wanted to use this opportunity to ruin Pengzhan Industries and Songshan's first school. After waiting for another half an hour, the emergency room door opened. A doctor in a white coat walked out hurriedly. He saw the people at the door and said, "You are the patient's family, right?" "Yes, I am. How is my child?" The middle-aged woman and the group of parents immediately surrounded them, waiting for the doctor's news. Although Pengzhan wanted to ask, he was representing Pengzhan Industries now. Although he was worried about his daughter, he could only wait for the doctor to answer the parents first. "The situation is not good," the doctor said. "When the patient was sent here, we initially thought it was food poisoning. But after our tests, the food in the patient's stomach didn't contain any substances that could cause a coma." The parents were dumbfounded. If it wasn't food poisoning, then what was it? And the patient's symptoms don't match the symptoms of other acute infectious diseases. Of course, it could also be caused by a new type of virus. The doctor said, "All the patient's conditions are very unstable. Their physiological functions are declining rapidly. We've already given the patients fluids, but they are not out of danger yet. Instead, their condition is worsening. We've already isolated the patients to prevent the possibility of spreading the infection." They're not out of danger but worsening? The parents were even more dumbfounded. What was going on? Even the hospital couldn't solve it. "Yes, we've already reported it to the higher authorities. We've also notified the experts in the medical field. We'll have a consultation later, but it's hard to say if there's a solution." The doctor said, "These are the notices of critical illness. Please find your child's copy and sign it." Critical illness notice? The parents were completely at a loss. They didn't expect that a coma would become a notice of critical illness. "What will happen if we don't sign it? We want to see our children," another parent asked. Chapter 660. Stay with Yaosis. The parents were in a mess with the notice, and Pingzhan was dumbfounded. He was no longer thinking about the impact this incident would have on the school. He was worried about his daughter. From Pengzhan's point of view, his daughter was more important than the company. He could lose the company and he could always start over. Although he wasn't young anymore, he wasn't an old man either. He could still fight and fight. But if his daughter was gone, everything would be over, and life would lose its meaning. The doctor's words were like thunder. Pengzhan didn't expect this to happen to Meng Yao. If he could, he would rather be the one who got sick instead of his daughter. While the parents were panicking, the happiest person was Direwolf. He finally thought of a breakthrough. Everyone look. How dangerous is Songshan's first school? There's an unknown virus. Is it a biochemical base? Direwolf's voice rang again. Even Chairman Chu's daughter couldn't escape. You can imagine how scary it is. The child fainted and you can't even find the reason. Think about your child. She was happy and healthy when she went to school in the morning. But a few hours passed. What are you holding in your hands? Notice of critical illness. I'm not saying something unlucky, but there aren't many patients who survived after receiving this notice. This is too scary, especially when they don't even know how they died. The parents heard Direwolf's words, and they regretted sending their children to Songshan's first school. At first, they thought that Songshan's first school was the best school in the city, but they didn't expect their children to step on the road of death. Direwolf was overjoyed, and he quickly asked someone to record this scene with a recording pen and a camera. Although Pengzhan heard Direwolf's words, he didn't refute it, because his mind wasn't on it anymore. He was worried about Meng Yao's safety, and he didn't have time to care about Direwolf's slandering of the company and the school. However, this allowed Direwolf to seize the opportunity. After a series of videos and incitement, those grieving parents began to criticize the management system of the school. Yao sis will be fine. I want to see Yao Yao sis. Where is Yao Yao sis? I want to go. Yushu ran towards the emergency room's door abruptly. It was a long and narrow hallway, and at the very end of the emergency room was the infectious disease isolation room. A couple of nurses were spraying disinfectant around the room, and all of them froze when Yushu ran in. What are you doing? You can't come in. This is the infectious disease intensive care unit. Get out of here. The nurse said, startled as she stopped Yushu. But why would Yushu listen? In her mind, there is only one thought, that is to not let anything happen to Yao Yao Jie. Even if something happens to Yao Yao Jie, she must accompany her. As for whether it was contagious or not, she did not care. The doctor at the door was also stunned by Yushu's actions. When he recovered from his shock, he quickly yelled at the door that was pushed open. Come out, don't go in, it's dangerous. Yushu didn't listen. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but the two nurses weren't able to stop her. Yushu was already at the end of the corridor, and there was a row of isolation rooms, each with a large glass panel in front of it. Yushu quickly found Meng Yao's isolation room. Ignoring the doctors' and nurses' shouts, she pushed the door open and rushed in. Ajia, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Yushu ran to Meng Yao's side, grabbed her hand and started crying. With Yushu taking the lead, the rest of the parents also rushed in after a slight hesitation. They found their children's isolation rooms and entered. In this situation, the hospital's nurses and doctors could only smile bitterly. They couldn't do anything about it. In fact, they understood these people's actions. They were worried about their children's safety. They didn't care whether it was contagious or not. Since you guys have entered before the isolation is lifted, you can only stay in the hospital. The doctor stood in the corridor helplessly and shouted, your movement is temporarily restricted. The parents didn't care. They wanted to stay by their children's side. Even if they were asked to leave now, they wouldn't leave. Pengzhan and Faubert followed. Pengzhan entered Meng Yao's isolation room, and Faubert followed without hesitation. This also showed how loyal Faubert was to Pengzhan. He was actually willing to risk his own life. Yao Yao, Miss Chu. Pengzhan and Faubert rushed to Meng Yao's bedside. Seeing Yushu holding Meng Yao's hand and crying, Pengzhan sighed. Yao Yao and Shu grew up together. They were very close. They weren't biological sisters, but they were closer than biological sisters. If anything happened to Yao, Shu wouldn't feel better than him. She might not even be able to take it. Meng Yao's face was very pale, without a trace of blood. There were a lot of wires connected to her body. Although Peng Zhan couldn't understand the numbers on the screen, it couldn't be good. Shu, you should stay away from Yao, don't let her get infected. As a senior, Peng Zhan naturally had to remind Yushu. Otherwise, if Yushu really got infected, he would be sorry to Yushu's parents. No, I don't want to leave, I want to stay with Yao sis. Yushu shook her head. I want to wait for Yao sis to wake up. Peng Zhan saw Yushu's determination. He didn't insist. Direwolf and the reporter saw that the parents entered the emergency room. They looked at each other. Those parents dared to go in, but they didn't. This infectious disease was not a joke. If he was not careful and got infected, wouldn't that be the end of him? But Direwolf was the leader, and more or less gave them some benefits, so it wasn't good to leave immediately. So he suggested, Wolf bro, why don't you go in and interview them, we'll wait here? Forget it, let's go. Direwolf was also a person who was afraid of death. How could he risk his life for 20,000 yuan? Shaking his head, he brought these people back. The current material was enough. Even if they didn't continue the interview, it was enough to write Peng Zhan Industries into pieces. Chapter 661. Guan Shuamin's opponent. Because of the huge impact of this incident, the health department took it very seriously after the hospital reported it. They immediately gathered some famous doctors in the medical world to form a team of experts and rushed to Songshan's Second People's Hospital for a consultation. Guan Shuamin was one of the people in charge of this team of experts. He didn't usually make house calls, but this was a serious matter, and it was an unknown situation. Guan Shuamin was highly respected and experienced, so of course he had to participate. Soon, the entire team of experts entered the emergency room to analyze the patient's condition. I think this is an unknown new virus. Zhang Weikong, one of the people in charge of this team of experts and the president of the Medical Association, said, we need to report this to the International Health Organization immediately and have them send foreign experts here for research. Dr. Zhang, isn't it too early to say that it's an unknown virus? Guan Shuamin had a different opinion. According to the school, all the students got sick at the same time, and the students who got sick only made up a small percentage of the entire school. If it's an acute infection caused by an unknown virus, then isn't the timing a little too coincidental? Could it be that the virus was arranged to infect all the students at the same time? Guan Shuamin's words were sharp, but he pointed out the crux of the matter, which was that this incident wasn't an unknown virus infection. But Guan Shuamin's last sentence was hilarious, and it made the experts burst into laughter. Zhang Weikong's expression changed. He and Guan Shuamin weren't on good terms. Although he was the president of Songshan's Medical Association, everyone in Songshan's medical field knew that Guan Shuamin was the best in the medical field. Then with Miracle Dr. Guan's wisdom, what's going on? Zhang Weikong laughed coldly, purposely calling Guan Shuamin Miracle Dr. Guan. It seemed like it wasn't a big deal since Guan Shuamin's company was called Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Company, but saying it at this time was very sarcastic. Guan Shuamin could hear the sarcasm in Zhang Weikong's tone, but he didn't care. He was a person of knowledge and he didn't care about fame. This was also the reason why he refused to be an official in the Medical Association. Otherwise, Zhang Weikong wouldn't be the president of the Medical Association. Based on my experience, I think it's more likely that he was poisoned. My illness acted up not long after I had lunch, and the timing of my illness was very close. My current symptoms are similar to those of poisoning. Ha! Zhang Weikong laughed coldly and interrupted Shuamin. Miracle Dr. Guan's analysis is very insightful, but it's a shame that even though you're a miracle doctor, you should take a look at the case before expressing your opinion. Otherwise, not only will it waste our time, but it will also waste the patient's precious resuscitation time. The medical records clearly state that no toxic ingredients were detected in the food in their stomachs. May I ask how they got food poisoning? That's not surprising. What if the toxic substance has already been absorbed by the human body? Guan Shuamin wasn't angry at all. Academics needed to be skeptical, and he was happy to see people questioning him. Absorb? You mean the patient only absorbed the poisonous substances and left the non-poisonous food in his stomach? Zhang Weikong laughed out loud. According to what you said, these people's stomach function is really strong, right? How could he tell if it was poisonous or not? And he purposely absorbed the poisonous ones? Zhang Weikong's words attracted some laughter. But these experts didn't help either side. They wouldn't get involved in a fight between gods. I've seen similar records in some ancient medical books. Guan Shuamin didn't mind and continued to explain. There are some poisons made from Chinese herbs and insects that can be quickly absorbed by the human body. Ancient medical books? Let's not talk about whether or not these books are fake. Even if they were real, how would we know if what was written in them was correct? Zhang Weikong obviously didn't believe Guan Shuamin's words. Don't forget, the hospital has already called the police. The police have sealed the cafeteria and tested the food in the cafeteria. They didn't find any toxic substances. Plus, there were so many students eating in the cafeteria. Why were only these few poisoned? First of all, I can't deduce how they were poisoned. This is the police's job. What I'm saying is just my opinion, Guan Shuamin said. My opinion is to report this to the International Health Organization. This isn't something we can handle. If you insist that it's poison, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. Zhang Weikong didn't want his reputation and future to be affected by these students. He didn't need to take any measures anyway. Reporting to the higher-ups was the easiest way. Someone else would take care of these things. Even if the students died, it had nothing to do with him. Guan Shuamin sighed. Although he had only seen similar information in ancient medical books, there wasn't any way to detoxify it. It was only listed as one of the ancient poisons, along with other poisons such as venomous insects. There was only a brief introduction, and it wasn't very detailed. Let's take a look at the patients first. Guan Shuamin sighed. No matter what, since he was here, he couldn't just do nothing, right? If you want to see them, go see them yourself. This is an infectious disease. Before we take preventive measures, it's better not to come into contact with the patients. Zhang Weikong didn't want to be infected by the virus. He was a person who was afraid of death. He had a bright future ahead of him. There was no need to lose his life for a few students. Of course, whoever wants to go can go. Among these experts there were many responsible medical workers. At this moment, after hearing Zhang Weikong's words, they all showed an angry expression. If you're afraid of death, why are you a doctor? A doctor's job is to save lives, to fight on the front line of danger. In every profession there were some black sheep. There were also some who had the same idea as Zhang Weikong. They hid their bodies and pretended not to care about their own affairs. Professor Guan, we'll go with you to see the patients. Many experts stood up and said to Guan Shuamin. Chapter 662. Ancient Strange Poison. Shuamin walked out of the meeting room and walked quickly to the emergency room. He was recognized by the doctors as soon as he reached the emergency room. Shuamin had a high reputation in Songshan's medical field, and some of these doctors were his students. Naturally, they were more respectful when they saw Shuamin. Professor Guan, you're here. Dr. Sun, who was in charge of the emergency room, was also Shuamin's student. He quickly welcomed Shuamin. Are you going to do a house visit? Yeah, I'll take a look. Shuamin nodded. Bring me there. Dr. Sun hesitated. If it was an acute infection, it would be very dangerous for Shuamin to go there. But he knew Shuamin's personality. He didn't care about life and death. So he only hesitated for a moment before bringing Shuamin to the isolation room. Among the parents, someone recognized Shuamin and shouted, Miracle Dr. Guan is here. My child can be saved. What? Miracle Dr. Guan? Which Miracle Dr. Guan? Of course it's Guan Shuamin. Miracle Dr. Guan. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company has been very famous recently. I heard that there are 2 special medicines that are going to hit the market soon. The parents were overjoyed when they heard that it was Shuamin. Shuamin's reputation was well known, and he had the title of Miracle Doctor. If he was here, then their children would definitely have hope. So all the parents rushed out and pulled Shuamin Miracle Dr. Guan, please take a look at my child. Let my child take a look first, I beg you. Let my child take a look first. My family only has one son in 3 generations. Let my child take a look, I beg you, I'm begging you. I only have one daughter, and her mother died giving birth to her. I can't lose her. The parents were in a mess again. They all wanted Xuemin to treat their children first. Pengzhan could see everything clearly from the isolation room, but he didn't want to get involved. He was worried about Mingyao's safety, but the other parents were worried about their children as well. He was the chairman of the school, so how could he compete? Moreover, as long as the cause of the illness was found, it would be easy to treat it. Dr. Sun felt a headache when he saw the parents, but he said, everyone, please be quiet. You will only waste precious time like this. Let Professor Guan choose which room he wants to go to. As long as we find the cause of one disease, we can start to treat them in batches. Dr. Sun's words woke the parents up. They stopped talking and waited for Guan Xuemin to make his choice. Guan Xuemin didn't look at the expectant gazes of these parents. Instead, he casually walked into an isolation room closest to him. 2 of the parents were instantly overjoyed. Obviously, they were the parents of the children in the ward. Guan Xuemin ignored these people and went to the unconscious student's side. Soon he was in the zone. 10 minutes later, Guan Xuemin shook his head. The patient's pulse was very weak, which meant that the patient's physiological functions were weakening. The patient's vital signs were also very weak. If this continued, the patient would die by tomorrow at the latest. But there was nothing Guan Xuemin could do. This kind of weakness was similar to an old man at the end of his life. It was as if he had used up all of his life force and was walking towards the end of his life. Theoretically speaking, there was no way to save him. But the patient was only a child in his teens. He wasn't an old man at all. It was very strange for this to happen. Nothing had happened before. Suddenly he became like this. If he wasn't poisoned, then what was it? Guan Xuemin's heart was even more determined. As for the so-called bacterial infection, Guan Xuemin didn't really believe it. It was just a possibility. Poison. 1,000-year-old poison. Did such a poison really exist? If it did, how did these children get poisoned? Who was the culprit? Was it unintentional or intentional? Guan Xuemin couldn't figure it out. At this moment he was trying his best to recall the ancient book that he had read. He wanted to recall the antidote from it, but helplessly Guan Xuemin couldn't think of a similar explanation no matter how hard he racked his brain. Did he really have to give up? There were 28 children here. Guan Xuemin really didn't want to see them die just like that. Suddenly, a person appeared in Guan Xuemin's mind. Guan Xuemin took out his phone and dialed a number. At this moment he could only ask for help. Other than that, there was no other way. Lin Yi took his clothes and phone and left Jiang Wen's kidney trafficking company headquarters. Jiang Wen's headquarters was in the suburbs. Usually, there weren't many cars passing by here. If Lin Yi wanted to go back to school, he could only walk to the bus station near the suburbs and take a taxi or bus. While waiting for the taxi, Lin Yi took out his phone to check the time. He realized that there were a few missed calls. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that before he pretended to be unconscious, Lin Yi set his phone to vibrate so that Jiang Wen wouldn't take the call out. He forgot to turn it back after he left the kidney trafficking company. He checked the caller ID and realized that they were all from Yushu. Lin Yi didn't know why Yushu was looking for him. There were more than 10 calls. Could it be that the miss was looking for him? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he recalled the fight between Meng Yao and Tang Yun. Could it be that the miss and Tang Yun were fighting again? Thinking about this, Lin Yi quickly called back. The sudden ringing shocked Yushu. Pengzhan and Faubert were also shocked. Meng Yao took out her phone and looked at the caller ID. It was Lin Yi. She quickly picked up the phone. Shield bro, where did you go? Why didn't you pick up? Yao Yao sis is going to die soon. Sob, you didn't pick up my calls. I've decided not to be with you anymore. Meng Yao was going to die? Lin Yi was shocked. Meng Yao was still fine when he left. He had only left for a few hours and Meng Yao was going to die? What had happened in the middle of this? Shu, don't panic. What happened to Yao Yao? Where are you guys? Lin Yi asked. We are in the emergency room of Songshan's second hospital. Come quickly, shield bro. If Yao Yao sis dies, I don't want to live anymore. Yushu was panicking, but the fact that she could contact Lin Yi gave her some hope. In Yushu's mind, shield bro seemed to be able to do anything. Chapter 663. Speed car. Okay. Yushu knew that explaining the situation to Lin Yi would save them some time, and so she told Lin Yi about what happened in the cafeteria. Lin Yi, on the other hand, frowned after listening to Yushu's story. Manga just fainted out of nowhere? Lin Yi couldn't make a judgment based on Yushu's words, so he decided to go to the hospital first. Sir, can you please drive faster? Lin Yi was worried about the Miss's safety. Living with the Miss every day made Lin Yi develop some feelings for the Miss. Although Lin Yi's master and old Lin had trained him to be a little cold-blooded, he wasn't a plant or a tree. Mingyao wasn't just his employer. Lin Yi saw her as a friend. Otherwise, Lin Yi wouldn't be in such a rush. He was Mengyao's follower, but he wasn't her personal doctor. Peng Zhan didn't tell him that he was obligated to take care of Mengyao's illness. But the situation was different. Lin Yi was worried about the Miss from the bottom of his heart, so he urged the driver to go faster. They were still quite a distance away from Songshan's Songshan Hospital, and it would take at least an hour at their current speed. Kid, this car of mine is 5 years old, and it's not working well anymore. It's dangerous to drive fast, and I don't dare to drive fast. The driver smiled bitterly. I know you're in a rush to get to the hospital, so how about this? I'll drive to a place with more cars and you can switch to another car? As for the fare, it's up to you whether you want to pay or not. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head at the driver's words. They were still quite a distance away from the city, and Lin Yi couldn't wait any longer. Let me drive, I'll pay you the fare, and I'll pay you an extra 500. Lin Yi took out his wallet and counted out 700 kuai, putting it on the dashboard. It was about 200 kuai to get to the hospital from here, so 700 was already a lot for Lin Yi. The driver hesitated for a moment before asking, Young man, do you have a driver's license? Yes. Lin Yi took out his driver's license from his wallet and showed it to the driver. Okay, then you drive. The driver gladly took the 700 yuan and parked the car on the side of the road. It was Lin Yi's turn to drive. The driver was also very clear. Even if Lin Yi's way of driving wasted some gas, the money would be enough. Even the money for the violation of the law was included, so why not? After Lin Yi got in the car, he started the car, put it in gear, and released the clutch in one go. After the car rushed out, the next thing he did was to constantly change gears and accelerate. Lin Yi's driving style gave the driver a shock. How long had it been? Lin Yi had already put it in gear 5, and he kept stepping on the accelerator. The car was like a runaway horse that was galloping. Although this was a suburban road, and there were no cars, the speed limit here was 80 kilometers per hour. If there was a speed camera recording of Lin Yi driving like this, he would have been recorded. Fortunately, there were no cameras on this road, however. After Lin Yi entered the city, his speed didn't decrease. Instead, he kept accelerating. Seeing that there were more and more cars, the driver quickly said, Young man, slow down. It's dangerous. Besides, there is a post in front. There are policemen. You won't be able to hit them. Lin Yi said faintly. He was still accelerating. The car was like an afterimage, shuttling through the traffic nimbly. As soon as Lin Yi finished speaking, the car completed a drift, and the driver was so scared that his heart almost exploded. Drift? It can't be, right? I usually only see it on TV. I didn't expect my broken car to be able to drift. Was this guy a professional racer? As he was thinking, police sirens came from all around the car. Evidently, the surveillance center saw something strange here and sent people to intercept him. Young man, the police are here. Stop the car. The driver was so scared that he quickly said. He was done for. Wouldn't the car be impounded? This 700 RMB wasn't even enough to pay the fine. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He didn't expect the police to react so quickly. They locked onto his location in such a short amount of time. Lin Yi had no choice but to call Lingshan. Fortunately, Lingshan wasn't in the headquarters of the kidney trafficking organization, and her phone had signal. Lin Yi dialed her number. Hello? Lingshan. Linny didn't wait for her to speak and said directly, "My car is being targeted by the police. I need to go to the hospital to save someone. Inform them to pull back." Lingshan received the call from Lin Yi. She thought that Lin Yi was calling to ask if he had destroyed the kidney trafficking organization's HQ. She didn't expect it to be something else. But this time Lingshan didn't feel angry at Lin Yi's order. She didn't ask much and only asked, "What's your car number? What's your car number?" Lin Yi asked the driver. Song at 8224. The driver was shocked. This guy knew Lingshan? Actually, the driver shouldn't know the name Lingshan based on his profession. But when he listened to the news on the radio, he heard about the new captain of the criminal investigation team, Lingshan, solving the bank robbery case and capturing the bank robbers. That was why he had an impression. A while ago, she caught another criminal, and this made the driver feel that this captain of the criminal investigation team was very capable, so he remembered the name. But what he didn't expect was that Lin Yi knew Lingshan, and his tone wasn't polite at all. Who was this guy? Lin Yi didn't have time to think about what the driver was thinking. He told Lingshan the car number directly. Lingshan remembered the car number and called the traffic police command center. She couldn't just ignore Lin Yi's matter. Besides, Lin Yi had made it very clear that he was going to the hospital to save people. Wait, hospital to save people? Lingshan suddenly remembered the report from her subordinates. There was a mass coma in Songshan's first school. But because she was busy with the kidney trafficking organization case, she sent one of her team leaders to the school to investigate. Could it be that Lin Yi was going to save those poisoned students? Thinking that Lin Yi was also a student of Songshan's first school, and he was hired by Pengzhan, it made sense that he was going to save people. But this wasn't Lingshan's area of responsibility, so she didn't ask much. Suddenly, Lingshan remembered that Lin Yi didn't call her Miss Braindead, but called her by her name. Lingshan's heart skipped a beat for no reason. Was Lin Yi in a hurry and didn't have time to tease her, or did his attitude towards her change? Chapter 664. Just how strong was he? Lin Yi drove past another street, and the sirens of the police cars disappeared. Evidently, they had been notified. The driver was very impressed with Lin Yi, and it wasn't until Lin Yi stopped the car in front of the hospital that the driver came back to his senses. This was a driving god. He looked at the time, 19 minutes. It was a miracle, unbelievable. He never thought that his old car, which cost tens of thousands of kwai for 5 years, had the potential to be a sports car, or even faster than a sports car. Lin Yi's phone rang again when he got out of the car. He thought it was Yushu asking if he'd arrived, but it was Shuamin. Lin Yi picked up the phone as he walked into the hospital. "Hello, Grandpa Guan, what's up?" Lin Yi was worried about the Mrs. well-being, and so he remained polite to Guan Shuamin, but he was still a little impatient. He wanted to finish the call as soon as possible. Where are you? Can you come over if you don't have anything to do?" Guan Shuamin could hear the urgency in Lin Yi's voice. Something must have happened to Lin Yi, and it made his heart tighten. If Lin Yi couldn't come, then there was no hope at all. "I'm at Songshan's second hospital, my friend is in trouble, and I'm in a rush. I'm afraid I don't have time." Lin Yi replied quickly. "I'm sorry, Grandpa Guan, I'll call you when I'm done, okay?" Lin Yi pushed the door open and rushed into the emergency room. A doctor wanted to stop Lin Yi, but who knew that Lin Yi would be so fast? He went in the blink of an eye. Guan Shuamin froze when he heard Lin Yi's word. Lin Yi was at Songshan's second hospital too? Also, why was there an echo when Lin Yi spoke? Guan Shuamin raised his head and saw a figure dashing towards him. Who else could it be but Lin Yi? Lin Yi is here? Could it be that Lin Yi's friend was one of the poisoned students? Guan Shuamin heaved a sigh of relief when he thought of this possibility. If that was the case, then there was hope for these students. Shuamin hurriedly got up and followed. Lin Yi was surprised to hear someone call his name. He listened carefully and it was still Shuamin's voice. Lin Yi looked at the phone beside his ear. It didn't seem to be coming from the phone, but from behind him. Lin Yi turned around and said in surprise, "Grandpa Guan? Why are you here?" Is your friend one of the unconscious students? Guan Shuamin did not answer Lin Yi's question, but asked anxiously. Oh. Lin Yi paused for a moment, then understood. I see. Grandpa Guan, you called me here for the students, right? But it doesn't matter if you know anyone here. I have to go see my friend first. I'm sorry, I'll be there after I'm done. Lin Yi politely stated his standpoint. Shuamin was close to him, but since it wasn't Guan Shuamin who had fainted, Lin Yi still had to go see the miss first. Haha. I don't know anyone here. Go see your friend first, we can save them as long as we know the cause of their fainting. I'm just here to treat them. Shuamin waved his hand, signaling Lin Yi to calm down and focus on treating his friend. Lin Yi nodded, so Shuamin was worried about the student's condition. He had misunderstood him. Alright, I'll go see my friend first. Lin Yi nodded and started looking for Ming Yao's room. He didn't walk far before he saw Pingzhan, Faubert, and Yushu in one of the rooms. This was obviously Ming Yao's isolation room. Lin Yi pushed the door open and walked in. Pingzhan didn't know much about Lin Yi's medical skills. When Shu called Lin Yi, Pingzhan thought that Shu was just trying to find a doctor in a desperate situation. He didn't really think that Lin Yi could cure his daughter's illness. Faubert, on the other hand, was deep in thought. He knew that Lin Yi wasn't simple. He killed 2 golden class masters, so how strong must he be? In the beginning, Faubert suspected that Lin Yi was a golden class late phase, but a few days ago, he heard that Lin Yi and Uncle Zhu, who was working for Zhao Qibing, exchanged a palm strike. Faubert was shocked. Naturally, Faubert had heard of Uncle Zhu's name before. Back in the days, Uncle Zhu Laolu was a famous figure, with the strength of an early phase mystic class. Basically, he didn't have many opponents. Later, he heard that he was recruited by a family, but he didn't think that he would become Zhao Qibing's follower. For a master like that, even if he didn't break through in the past 10 years, it was impossible for his strength to deteriorate. He was definitely at the early phase mystic class. But after Lin Yi exchanged a palm strike with him, it was as if nothing had happened. He didn't seem to be injured at all. This surprised Faubert. Just how strong was Lin Yi? Was he a mystic class early phase as well? Only a mystic class master of the same level could fight Uncle Zhu head-on. Of course, if Lin Yi was a mystic class mid-phase, he would definitely be able to kill Uncle Zhu even if he didn't have the upper hand. Now that Uncle Zhu wasn't dead, and Lin Yi wasn't injured, it was strange. If Lin Yi was much stronger than Uncle Zhu, it was possible that he wasn't injured. But if Lin Yi was much stronger than Uncle Zhu, would Uncle Zhu still be alive? He would probably be dead by now, right? Even a mystic class mid-phase could kill an opponent in a head-on clash like this. Of course he would be injured. But Lin Yi wasn't injured and he didn't kill Uncle Zhu. The only possibility was that either Lin Yi didn't use his full strength, or Lin Yi's medical skills were superb, and he healed Uncle Zhu himself. Faubert felt that the first possibility was less likely. After all, Lin Yi was furious at that time. Why would he show mercy? After he broke Zhao Qibing's leg, he still had other things to do to Zhao Qibing. If he didn't care about Uncle Zhu at all, he could still continue to attack Zhao Qibing after killing Uncle Zhu. But Lin Yi didn't do that and chose to leave. Most importantly, Lin Yi was indeed injured that night, and he was treated at Fatty Lai's house. Although Faubert didn't know what happened, and he didn't see how serious Lin Yi's injury was, he could guess that it wasn't light. Because of this, Faubert suspected that Lin Yi's medical skills were superb as well. Chapter 665. Both are possible. Professor Guanli, you're here. Although Pengzhan noticed this detail, Lin Yi was still a junior to him, and they were familiar with each other, so he put Shuamin before him. I came with Lily to see if he can. Shuamin was a scholar, and he didn't care about his reputation. Lin Yi was better than him and he wouldn't hide it. But Yushu interrupted him before he could finish. Shil bro, you're finally here. Quick, take a look at Yao Yao, you have to cure her. Yushu looked at Lin Yi as if he was her savior. She grabbed Lin Yi and pulled him to Ming Yao's bedside. Okay. Lin Yi nodded, his face serious as he held Ming Yao's hand and checked her pulse. She was very weak, like an old man on the verge of death. But from Zhao Yazi's perspective, Meng Yao's energy was disappearing at a rapid rate, and the moment it completely disappeared would be the moment her life came to an end. Lin Yi frowned. This situation was very strange, and there were many possibilities for this to happen. First, it could be a physical problem like a natural disease, but Meng Yao obviously didn't have that. Second, it could be a malignant disease like cancer, but Meng Yao didn't look like a cancer patient at all. Other than that, there were two less common possibilities. First, she was injured by a master, and her internal organs were damaged. That was why her life was disappearing so quickly. Second, it could be poisoning. Some poisons could also destroy the body's physiological functions, causing a person to die quickly. Lin Yi didn't look at the case, and he didn't have the time to do so. He only asked Xuemin, "Grandpa Guan, what do you think?" Xuemin replied quickly when he heard Lin Yi's question. The experts have two guesses. First, she's infected with some unknown bacteria, and second, she's poisoned. Bacteria? Poisoned? Lin Yi nodded. Both are possible. Both are possible. Guan Xuemin was surprised. He didn't expect Lin Yi to agree with the germ theory. I have carefully studied voodoo. In fact, many voodoo are a type of bacteria, and people who are poisoned by voodoo will also have the same situation. Lin Yi said, but in the end it is still poisoning. Voodoo can also be considered poison. I see. Guan Xuemin hadn't thought about the goo poison, but after hearing Lin Yi's words, he understood. It seemed like he had been a little paranoid, and Zhang Weikong's words weren't without reason. Of course, Zhang Weikong was lucky, and he didn't expect that. Lin Yi was just guessing. He wasn't absolutely sure if Meng Yao was poisoned or not, but according to the current situation, waking Meng Yao up wasn't a difficult task, but waking her up wasn't something that could be maintained. Master Guan, is there anything wrong with the food in your stomach? Lin Yi had the same guess, but he still asked. No. Guan Xuemin said, at least from the current test results, there is no poison. But there are some herbs or bugs that can't be detected with chemical methods. Lin Yi nodded. I know that. I've done some research on poisons. Tang's poison scripture basically covers all the poisons in the world and the ways to detoxify them. It could be said that Lin Yi was very knowledgeable about poisons, and this was also related to his old man. Lin Yi didn't understand why his old man was so interested in poisons and voodoo, but Lin Yi was also very knowledgeable about poisons and detoxification. Tang's poison scripture. You've read Tang's poison scripture? Guan Xuemin's face changed drastically as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. In the ancient book that he had read before, when it mentioned the ancient poison, it also mentioned the famous Tang sect poison scripture, from ancient times to the present. Tang's poison scripture, as the name suggested, was one of the secret manuals of the Tang sect. The Tang sect was located in Sichuan, also known as the Tang family fortress. The Tang sect was famous for their poison. However, it had been lost in history, and only appeared in some wuxia novels and TV dramas. Whether or not this sect really existed was still unknown. As a result, Guan Xuemin wasn't sure if the Tang sect poison classic mentioned in the ancient book actually existed. This type of ancient medical book was not an orthodox medical literature, but rather an anecdote. The things mentioned in it were all strange things, some were true, some were false, so there was no way to judge. Yes, Lin Yi nodded. Tang's poison scripture wasn't the only one in his house. There were also many other books related to poison, such as the 5 poison scripture. Guan Xuemin was excited. Could it be that Lin Yi really came from an ancient medical family? Why did he see so many medical books that were lost in history? Of course, Guan Xuemin knew that this wasn't the time to ask about this. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, "Do you have a way to cure her? As long as she's poisoned, there should be a way. I'll give it a try." Lin Yi didn't make any promises. Although when he left the mountain, old Lin had said that he had already learned 1/3 of his skills, which was enough for him to dominate the martial arts world. Lin Yi wasn't an arrogant person. Who knew if he could cure her? However, Lin Yi wasn't worried about Meng Yao's safety. As long as he kept transferring pure energy into her body, the energy that Zhao Yazi mentioned, he could keep her alive indefinitely. Even if he couldn't cure her, he could still bring her to old Lin and save her. Although old Lin kept bragging about being the world's #1 miracle doctor, Linny knew that old Lin had the ability to do so. He, on the other hand, was still one level lower. Linny silently channeled the art of dragon mastery and transferred the energy into Mengyao's body. Fortunately, Mengyao's body wasn't like Xiao Xiao's, a bottomless pit that sucked Linny dry, even causing him to lose a level. Mengyao was a normal person, so the amount of energy she needed was very little. To Linny, it was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Linny let out a breath of relief. If Mengyao had really sucked all his energy dry like Xiao Xiao did, then it wouldn't be realistic to extend her life. He needed time to recover, right? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.